Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone.
And I am your host, last time on Wannabe, the Brainstorm of Pop Culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am okay.
It's not gonna be like I don't really think it's gonna be a super long one. Well, first off, welcome to our 99th podcast, which is last day of January, which is kind of weird. So next week on February 7th, we have our 100th podcast special.
Yep.
It's not gonna be too much. It's just like us responding to a couple videos, we did with our 20th.
But yeah, we're knocking over a few more standard rites of passage for the SJW.
Yeah.
For the anti-SJW response crowd there.
Yeah, you'll see. You'll see all that next week. Also, after the first week of February, we will. We're starting our February themed month.
Yeah. Love is in the air and all that.
Yeah. So we hope all you single, broken-hearted, lonely bastards will join us.
Yeah, there are far too many these days.
Yep. Anyway, yeah, so this week, not really much. I mean, there was, but it's gonna be kind of an easygoing night mostly.
Yeah, barring the first freaking article we have to do because good God.
Yeah, so context. Me and Dawn covered this article last week, but we couldn't get it done. So
because just as we thought we were finishing it, the stupidity engaged.
Right. So this is from the Los Angeles Times. I forgot the title of this. Yeah. At Netflix, Cobra Kai broke out. Now its whiteness is under a new spotlight. Yeah. This is written by Jin Yamato. Published January 8th, 2021. So yeah. We're aiming to hope. I do think we are going to finish this today.
Jin with an N or Jim with an M?
Jin with an N.
Ah.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, we are going to finish this, hopefully. But yeah, okay. Yeah, so clearly, check out Podcast The Storm 98 for the first half of this.
Mm-hmm. And away we go.
Yeah. A number of critics have taken notice of the series' whiteness as well. Salon Culture senior editor Han Nguyen, who has been critical of the series in the past, told The Times that the only main character of color who has any sort of interiority is Miguel. Daniel LaRusso, Italian kid from Jersey, as Randy Fair's Sonia Sariaya put it about the first 2 seasons, is the most Japanese character on this show.
Okay. Why does this matter? Serious question. Given that all of the characters involved are Americans, and therefore their overarching identity should be American first, why does it matter what minority status they hold? Also, once again, I'd like to point out, for those sitting in the cheap seats, that many Italians are dark-skinned, yet they don't count as people of color. For reasons.
Ironically, they were treated horribly when they first came to the States, too.
Yep. Although, to be fair, most Italians are descended from the Romans, so they were imperial bastards a long time ago, so I guess that balances out.
Why the Irish, though? That's a good question.
The Irish pretty much have always been getting fucked over. They got fucked over by the Roman Empire, they got fucked over by the British Empire, and they got fucked over when they came to America. And also they got fucked over by Ireland to some extent because of the potato famine. So the Irish just get fucked over repeatedly. Also, many of the Irish are descended from Celts, and many of the Celts were also dark-skinned originally. So there's that.
Mm. All right. Okay. Yeah, I got nothing really to say. Like the Japanese thing, like he's Zen, sure, like Daniel, but that's because he was taught by Mr. Miyagi. Granted, he kind of regressed into an egotistic jackass.
Yeah.
But he's
He's
grown.
the asshole.
Which again, like I have to say, I really applaud the show that they're willing to let characters go back on certain.
Yeah,
Like,
because unfortunately, making similar mistakes repeatedly is very, very human.
yeah, like it really is a good show. I would recommend people watch it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to start watching it just to piss the person who wrote this article off, I think.
Yeah. All right. At Times TV, as Times TV critic Lorraine Alley writes, Cobra Kai has successfully mined laughs and pathos from Johnny's transformation through his proximity to an immigrant family. Miguel.
Which means that the immigrant family is portrayed sympathetically.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing is, Johnny Lawrence is kind of a shit father to his actual son, Robbie.
Yeah.
And his son is actually a very interesting character on the fact that he's kind of going an even darker route than Johnny did in his youth.
Well, fuck.
But he's become he's learned to grow and better himself through Miguel, his first student and surrogate son. And it never really comes out that he and his family are Hispanic.
Nor should it.
Yeah. And they're just again like they're interesting characters and like there's a love blossoming between Miguel's mom and Johnny.
Yeah, but that appears to be the thing that this person is complaining about. That the Hispanic character can be just a character and doesn't have to get out the castanets and scream "Olay" every 5 seconds.
As a partial Hispanic myself, I am somewhat offended. Like, no, legitimately, I am offended by that. If that is what they are inferring.
Because it appears to be that the quote unquote proper and in all of the air quotes way to go about this in a social justice oriented opinion is to have a character's identity so rooted in their original culture, quote unquote, that it becomes the totality of their identity. So if they're a black person, they must by default be a rapper or a gang member or some other thing. And if they're a Hispanic person, they must be
Oh,
Speedy Gonzalez in human form, basically.
yo,
Uh,
you forgot Gordon Goodbrother.
yeah. And if they're disabled, then they have three options. Option one, the poor saintly disabled character who is wise beyond their years because of their hardships. Option two, the tough disabled character who actively shuns everything disabled about them. And option three, the bitter, beaten down grifter who uses their disability to take advantage of people, a la Gregory House. Those appear to be, and speaking as a disabled person, those appear to be the three major archetypes of disabled characters.
I mean, to be fair, I think the last one's kind of accurate, mostly. Like, no offense.
No, I know that people like that exist. People of all three archetypes do exist to some extent. I'm just saying
It's not
it
just
would be nice. It would be nice if a disabled character wasn't just the avatar of disabledness every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as much as I dislike Freddie Freedman in the comics, um, Captain Marvel Jr., for those that don't know, they handled him amazingly in the movie because he was none of those things. He was not the saintly disabled character who's wise and humble beyond their years. He wasn't the bitter grifter disabled character, and he wasn't the "I'm so tough that my disability doesn't matter" character either. He was just a character with a disability.
What's weird, and I know I say this a lot, and sometimes I wonder if it comes off as egotistical or jackassery, but as a writer, there is a lot of fun you can play with those archetypes, and even like you can mix them, mix and match.
Yeah.
To make interesting stories.
Yeah.
Like I've actually written a couple. Oh, hello, Taylor. Where is the one with polio or the intellectual disability? It's a good question. I got nothing.
Well, if it's a historically set IP we're talking about, then the disability in question is almost always related to polio because historical dramatic pathos.
Mm.
And as for the one to their credit, most of the characters with mental disabilities only have mental disabilities, and the characters with physical disabilities usually only have physical disabilities. Which, speaking as a disabled person, I am okay with because I've met people, and this appears to be a default assumption with a lot of people. They assume that if you have a physical disability, you must by default have a mental disability. And speaking as myself and someone who very much prides themselves on my intelligence, that gets annoying at about 0.8 of a second.
Oh, okay. They do focus a lot on the physical disability over the intellectual ones. Did they?
I mean,
I mean, to be fair, I've never really seen SJWs ever really tackle um, intellectual disabilities before. So
I mean, sometimes you do because they seem to have a very very paternalistic condescension towards autistic people. Um,
okay.
but the other thing is usually they don't get to utilize autism very much because they only seem interested in the low functioning autism, not and funnily enough, a lot of the personality quirks of people with high functioning autism are usually what they refer to when they mean like incels or toxic fans. That's usually what they mean. It means you're too high functioning autistic.
Mm.
When you get right down to it, that's basically what they
Actually,
mean.
a story that deals with a mentally deficient character. Um, uh, a slow thinker. Um, it's written.
Most of the time, people with mental disabilities are played as sympathetic and comical, because the places you most often see mentally disabled characters is in comedies, and I mean, basically every third Adam Sandler role is a person who very, very likely has some degree or other of mental challenges.
There's this comic that's written by Mark Millar or Miller, whatever the fuck his
Mhm.
last name is. I don't give a shit.
Yep.
Um,
There's too many Millers in comics. There's Frank Miller, there's Mark Millar, there's like one other.
well, no, it's like Mark Millar. I know it's been said both ways, but which is the accurate one is the thing.
Mhm.
But either way, he he wrote this story, and I realized like he's a very edgy kind of guy when he comes to writing comic books.
Mhm.
Um, but he wrote like it was kind of like a Superman story. It's not Red Sun, which he did write. Actually, I found that out.
Mhm.
It's Huck.
Ah,
I've not read it myself. I've seen reviews of it, and I kind of want to check it out.
I think I've heard of it, but I don't have an opinion on it one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, essentially, it is a guy with Superman powers. Like he can fly, and he's got like super strength and stuff. And also, he apparently has the ability that he can find anything that's lost, like keys and stuff.
Ah, he's a dowser. That's something usually attributed to like dowsing. Interesting.
But yeah, he is a bit slow,
Mhm.
but he's a genuinely good guy who just wants to help people.
Mhm.
And yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I like the idea. So,
Mm.
long story short, is that the whole dumbass belief that you can only portray these kind of characters a certain way is just beyond stupid.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, like I before we got really sidetracked there, kind of. Yeah, I was mentioning that I wrote a few characters that are technically disabled.
Mhm.
I mean, more often than not, they kind of worked a way around that through like robot limbs or uh but personality wise, you had a veteran who kind of went through so much shit, like losing his limbs and stuff, that he's become this jaded jackass and also
Yeah.
what somewhat of a xenophobe to the
Mhm.
people that were his enemy.
Yeah.
And eventually he kind of has to realize that he is being irrational in his hatred and stuff. Granted, he was a child soldier when this shit happened to him. So he's more
Mhm.
fucked up than you would think a normal veteran would be.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, he comes through realizing that, the things he's thought before are kind of stupid and just, again, irrational. And that's kind of helped through the woman he meets and falls in love with, which is, and keep in mind, this was like a space epic, like Guardians of the Galaxy meets Expendables idea I had.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's an alien woman that he falls in love with, which was a woman. She's of the species that he kind of hated.
Hmm.
So, yeah. And also, like, another one who kind of got around by building technology and becoming a superhero despite his disability. So yeah, granted, I've never written
Mhm.
a intellectual disability character because I have not looked into mental disabilities. Um, I just haven't really found a reason to incorporate that.
Yeah, mental disabilities are very, very hard to write unless you're doing a comedy, is the thing. Like, if you actually want to take them to some degree seriously, it's a lot more it's a lot more uncomfortable, I think, for a lot of people. And again, I'm speaking as someone with a physical disability. I also find contemplating mental disability horrifying myself because I my intellect is pretty much all I have. It's the one thing in my life that seems to work most of the time. And the idea of even just being quote unquote normal usually fucking scares me. Like one of the movies that honestly makes me feel like I want to vomit is the movie A Beautiful Mind. And everyone I've ever talked about that movie with says that the ending is a happy ending. And I'm left sitting there going, no, it's not a happy ending. It's horrifying. He had a genius level intellect, and as a result of that, he had to deal with schizophrenia. But his schizophrenia medication basically renders him normal, like without any high functioning nature to him at all. That's that's not a happy ending, at least not for me. That's horrifying. But then again, that might just be me. That might just be me being a little bit too close to that kind of thing. But personally, for me, I would rather be mad than I would normal any day. If I could be mad and brilliant, then I would choose to be mad and brilliant rather than normal and sane.
Each person with intellectual disabilities are different. Yeah, well, that's just people in general, honestly.
Yeah, but I get what he's saying. The fact that if you want to portray a character with mental disabilities, it very much depends on the disability you are wanting that character to have.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, this is also true of physical disabilities, but usually physical disability needs to be no more complicated than the person is in a wheelchair or the person has a walker or some shit. And usually it's either polio if it's a historically based movie, or some kind of paralysis, um, or some kind of accident, or maybe very rarely something neurodegenerative like Lou Gehrig's disease or something. Oddly enough, I almost never see any disabled characters that actually are alleged to have my disability, which is cerebral palsy. But I don't know. I might just not look hard enough because I don't really consider my disability to be that big a deal
Mm-hmm.
for what defines me as a person. So I don't really focus on it very often.
Anyway,
Anyway, moving on.
yeah.
Massive sidebar over.
Yeah. It's also scrutinized how Kreese's brand of karate perpetuates a cycle of militant, toxic masculinity. Okay, I I can sort of understand where they're coming from with that, but it's not really toxic masculinity. It's just more overt aggressive, per- overt aggressiveness. You know, with like the
Yeah.
whole strike hard, strike fast, no, strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
hmm The thing about aggression is most neurologically typical men who are not traumatized, unbroken individuals use aggression to either defend themselves proportionately or defend others. In fact, we often get more angry when we see others being harmed than we do ourselves. And that is considered desirable when it comes time to start doing the reading. So if you want men to be less aggressive, then you need to start putting it on women to stop selecting aggressive people to breed with. Because all that's going to do, if you don't address that issue, is result in a bunch of women preferring aggressive men, not wanting to admit to themselves that they prefer aggressive men, and then falling for the aggressive man anyway. Because aggression is a sign of dominance. And like I often point out, our brains don't realize that we are no longer living in the Stone Age. Evolutionarily and neurologically speaking, our subconscious minds are expecting us to essentially still live in the Stone Age. Because evolution hasn't changed the human animal in a couple 100,000 years. So if you want to change those instincts, then you need to engage in selective breeding to breed out whatever it is you don't find desirable. And if you, by all miracles, find those qualities desirable anyway, dominance, aggression, competitiveness, hierarchical advancement, yada yada yada, the procuring of massive amounts of resources. If you women still find those things desirable, then get off your moral goddamn high horse and accept that it's partly your fault, at least. And also, while we're on the subject, because I am a men's rights advocate and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, a lot of times what we would refer to as toxic aggression is a result of not having the self-control and self-restraint that comes from stable male friendships and stable male role models, which a lot of modern men don't have because they're raised by single mother families. So if you want there to be fewer unstable men, then either you need to accept it when men form male friendships and learn from their peer groups how to function, or ideally, you could stop forcing fathers out of the family unit disproportionately, or further, ideally, both. Men could have both strong male friendships and stable father figures to teach them how to regulate their emotions. Because usually this kind of outward aggression is a sign of trauma and not knowing how to process emotions correctly. Because if you break a child's brain when they're in their formidable years, when they're vulnerable, then eventually, when they're not vulnerable anymore, they're going to go fucking overboard to compensate for all the broken and damaged parts of themselves when they can. It's a simple fact of life and human psychology. Okay, rant over.
You sure?
For now.
But no, look, the whole militant toxic masculinity thing, it's not really that. It's more, just to get my own thoughts out. It's more, if I remember correctly, because John Kreese, I will honestly say the guy is suffering from a sort of PTSD from the time he was in Nam.
Yeah.
Because
again, an excellent example of a trauma response. So if you don't want men to act traumatized, stop traumatizing them or putting them in situations where they're going to get goddamn traumatized.
Done.
Sorry. Go on with your thing.
Which is also backed up by season 3, like the current season. Like they do flashbacks of John Kreese's time in Nam and shit he went through. But he's also like, he's pragmatic in the way that Cobra Kai was meant to be of technically for self-defense in the quote-unquote real world. You know, like if you get into an actual fight, Cobra Kai is meant to help you defend yourself and stuff like that. But I think that kind of got lost with kind of Kreese's ego. Yeah, that's...
Which he has, because he's trying to compensate for the fucked up upbringing he had as a child and the fucked up situation he was in during the fucking war.
Yeah.
In short, men act broken when they are broken.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want fewer men acting like they're broken, try putting them in less breakable situations.
And again, like I'm not advocating for John Kreese because he is an asshole, but I can understand him, and he is technically helping the kids be able to. Because again, like most of the kids that were in modern day Cobra Kai were the nerds, were the outcasts, were the people that were kind of um, ostracized.
The people with no power and at the bottom of the
Yeah,
dominance hierarchy.
yeah, and Cobra Kai was kind of just to help them, one, gain the confidence to be able to stand on their own 2 feet in front of the people that kind of constantly trash them and shit.
Yeah.
And again, to help them be able to protect themselves and those they care about in a fight.
The problem, of course, is when you have a person who knows explicitly what it's like to be vulnerable and shit on, when you give such a person a great degree of power, a lot of them, at least internally and subconsciously, say to themselves, I'm never going to feel like that useless piece of shit again.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start turning the dominance hierarchy in their favor. And again, if you have a group of people who's likely been traumatized by repeated social humiliation or traumatization, they're probably going to disproportionately overreact because in their mind they've been beaten down. All of their boundaries have been knocked down or crossed over or just ignored. And when people ignore your boundaries or they refuse to acknowledge the boundaries you set, you start to feel very, very raw. And when something hits a raw nerve and all you know is pain and suffering, and somebody offers you a solution to that pain and suffering, you might overindulge. In the same way that if you're starving in the middle of a desert and somebody offers you food, you're probably going to overeat a bit.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just the whole toxic masculinity thing is just really fucking stupid, and it makes no sense and is easily refuted.
Yeah, and again, this is the ultimate test I have for anyone who genuinely evokes the notion of toxic masculinity. Is there what you would consider an amiable form of masculinity? Is there a counterpart to toxic masculinity? Is there an anti-toxic form of masculinity? And furthermore, is there ever a toxic form of femininity? Or are or is womanhood and femininity by definition perfect, and even insinuating toxic femininity is a thing is somehow insulting to all women or some shit? And if you believe that, then how exactly the fuck can you reason your way out of believing that saying X is toxic masculinity is not vilifying all men? Because if you believe me calling Elizabeth Bathory toxically feminine is wrong because it somehow demonizes all women, then calling the main characters of Cobra Kai toxically masculine is vilifying all men.
To be fair,
And if
I have a female villain who is a kind of complete cunt.
yeah, would you accuse this female character of having toxic femininity is my question. And if not, please put the toxic masculinity jargon away.
Honestly, she's not really feminine. She's kind of a tomboy,
Mm-hmm.
and she's also a cheating bitch. Like she uses weapons and shit in fights.
Uh-huh.
She ain't got no honor.
Mm-hmm.
Great actress, though. I really respect her. Yeah. Well,
Moving along.
yeah. But it has been slow to explore Daniel's own blind spots beyond a moment of clueless sushi explaining and his bewilderment that his karate chopping commercials might be seen as cultural appropriation. Oh, fuck off. Karate is for everyone, you fuck knuckle.
Agreed. And do you not think that Asians don't ever use martial arts for marketing or commerce purposes?
Yeah, check out any Hong Kong commercial. I mean, granted, a lot of Hong Kong commercials for some reason are very emotional, manipulative.
Yeah. But the reason why Western culture picked up on the fact that Chinese culture uses martial arts a lot, or Asian culture uses martial arts a lot, is because they also use martial arts a lot. It's a massive part of their culture. Martial arts to a lot of the Asian cultures is a lot like drinking and guns to American culture. You take it out and you're missing quite a massive part of the culture. And the people in question really seem to enjoy that aspect of their culture. Saying you can't engage in martial arts to an Asian is basically like saying to a redneck you can't shoot guns and drink beer or set off fireworks on the 4th of July. And I invite you to try that, but you're gonna get shot and probably beaten about the head with a beer bottle if you actually in earnest try that. And if you try to take martial arts away from Asian cultures, you're probably gonna get beaten the fuck out of. Just say it. Moving forward? Or did he bounce again?
I returned.
Huzzah.
Yeah, I was getting ribs.
Ah.
That is just one of the most. It sounds like one of the fattest things I've ever said.
It did, but ribs are tasty, so I'm not gonna fault you.
Yeah. All right. The thing I'd like to see them do is to go beyond this suburban idyllic space, this white pocket dimension, more deeply, said writer and podcaster Jeff Yang, who has covered the series for Quartz. What if they actually did encounter people who embrace martial arts not just to overcome bullying, but because it's part of a larger tradition that exists within people of color communities? What the fuck? Like, I know we've covered stuff like this before, but goddamn, it's so hard to believe that there are people that really think this shit.
Yeah. Okay. If let's try to show you why that doesn't work. Because I can almost guarantee you that as soon as we show an Asian culture or anyone of Asian descent doing martial arts as a lifestyle, it's going to get called stereotyping and Asian fetishization. I would bet money on that. As literally the very episode where someone does that, it'll get called stereotyping and fetishization of Asian culture by somebody. You can't say all Asians engage in martial arts. That's just silly and stupid. But white people also shouldn't engage in martial arts because that's cultural appropriation.
Okay. Question. Oh, sorry. Okay, 1970s. Blaxploitation. The black community got really into martial arts by watching Bruce Lee films and films of that sort, other kung fu movies, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
So you're saying black people, who is kind of your go-to for oppressed people of color communities, not allowed to do martial arts?
Because it's internalized racism or something, because it calls back to blaxploitation and it means you've internalized your oppressor somehow. That would be the rationale that they would use.
I don't.
Yep. and herein lies the rub. If you notice, Brainstorm and I just saved you all about 5 seasons and $1 billion of trying to make this work. Because if you'll notice, you can come up with some kind of pseudo-intellectual woo reason why nobody is allowed to do martial arts. And I bring this up because when you people say whiteness, what you mean is Western meritocracy. You mean everything the ancient Romans and ancient Greeks gave us. You mean everything we got from the Hellenistic era where Greece, Rome, and Egypt all kind of mixed together. You mean everything we got from the British Empire. And you basically mean everything we got since the beginning of the Renaissance through the Enlightenment and into the scientific revolution. That's what you mean when you say whiteness. So anyone can embrace quote unquote whiteness by your definition if they engage in anything resembling meritocracy. And that, funnily enough, might be why you don't like martial arts. Because martial arts is all fucking about discipline, efficiency, and learning to master yourself. But that's fucking haram according to the social justice ideology, now isn't it? Which is why you can come up with some conjured from thin air rationale as to why essentially no one should be allowed to do martial arts. White people shouldn't be allowed to do it because cultural appropriation. Black people shouldn't be allowed to do it because internalizing blaxploitation. Asian people shouldn't be allowed to do it because that's stereotyping and Asian fetishization. And then just like that, bang, you have a world where nobody is functionally allowed to do martial arts, and we all can just ignore the fact that even non-white cultures like the Asian ones figured out that hard work, efficiency, discipline, and mastering yourself actually amount to things.
Yeah. Funny story. I considered taking up karate and various other.
Yeah, and he's told the story before on stream as well. I believe it was podcast 30 when you first told the you wanted to learn martial arts story.
Yeah. I don't think I could learn it now, just on the fact that I don't know. Like, I'm just not. Like, I respect it and all. I just don't think I myself right now would have the patience nor the drive to really pursue it.
Also, it'd be made even more difficult by COVID restrictions, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that too. It's like I'd like to study it and know more about it, obviously, but
I think once the COVID restrictions and stuff relaxed, you should try to pursue that. I think it'd be good.
I gave up on it 10 years ago. I don't really think I'm.
Well, but you're still young enough that you can get good at it eventually.
Dude, the only reason why I wanted to do it was because I wanted to be a superhero. I wanted to be Batman.
And I still don't see why that's a bad idea. Obviously, you probably won't, but being able to kick ass is never a bad idea.
Hmm.
Especially in the inner cities.
I got a big ass dog. I don't leave my house, so.
Well, but you also like to go on walks, so there's that.
I haven't gone on a walk in 2 years.
Has it really been that long? Well, no, I guess because COVID restrictions.
The COVID thing was kind of a major factor, but also just I never really had any. Usually, when I would go on walks, I would make sure I have some money on me in case I wanted to go eat or something.
Yeah.
Most
and,
times I don't have money.
And money is a fictional concept now because everything is fucking closed.
No, it's not even that. It's just like most of the time I didn't have money.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Give me a sec. All right, sending Daniel back to Okinawa in the third season to rewrite with Kimiko, Tomita, and Chosen, Okumoto. If I said those names wrong, I'm sorry. Is a step in that direction, allowing the show to feel what was missing, said Heald, to acknowledge that there's a big missing piece because of Mr. Miyagi and come to the point of appreciating that it's not just Mr. Miyagi, it's everything that he touched and that touched him.
Everyone loves Mr. Miyagi. He's the Yoda of the Karate Kid franchise.
Yeah,
you will not find a single bugger who likes this franchise who doesn't like Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
I defy you to.
I also like to again state that I am still of the opinion that in Cobra Kai, it's not Daniel who is the second coming, or is the successor to Mr. Miyagi and his teachings, but it is Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was eating my ribs.
Yeah, I still think that's a good idea, and I hope they do go that route.
It seems like they're going that route, and it doesn't look like they're really leaning into the characters becoming better people, which I really respect.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the return, which Makino himself had pushed for, and on which Tomita and Kumoto consulted, results in some of the series' most resonant payoffs. I wanted him to evolve as a character, said Okamoto, of the once dangerously prideful Chosen. That's from the second movie.
Mm.
I mean, not second, third.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to just be there as a person to push the story along. I wanted him to go through a journey, go through a soul searching. Yeah, no. Again, this sounds like how a lot of shows these days should be done.
Yeah. Because of this little thing we call artistic meritocracy. But oops, that's whiteness. Can't have that. Scratch it off entirely.
The fact that you have the actors for these characters consult on the characters themselves and how they could change and evolve over 40 years or 30 years.
Yeah, it's what every reboot / continuation of every long loved franchise would, I think every fan would prefer it to be. That's honestly probably what we were hoping for, or at least I think most of the hardcore Star Wars fans were hoping for with the sequel trilogy. They just didn't get it because our stupid, arbitrary philosophical and political point scoring exercises are more important than your enjoyment or any sort of integrity of the series.
Mm-hmm. All right. Heald, Hurwitz, and Schlossberg who are writing the fourth season say they're well aware of the criticisms, having made Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Holy shit! They made that. Holy fuck! That I have so much more respect for Cobra Kai
now. Agreed.
Yeah,
it's a small world after all.
We've been particularly sensitive to Asian American representation in movies and television, said Schlossberg of the 2004 comedy starring John Cho and Kyle Penn, which he co-wrote with Hurwitz. While there are no writers of Asian descent on the Cobra Kai writing staff, oh my fucking god.
You don't need to be of a demographic to have understanding or empathy for a demographic.
Yeah.
A lot of the people who write gay romance novels, for example, are women. But if they're good at their jobs, I don't care.
Wait,
I think it's extremely ironic, but irony is another bad thing.
Wait, I just women, or are we talking gay women?
well, it's usually straight women writing male for male stories, so it's always hilarious to me. There,
Holy,
funnily enough, heterosexual women are also one of the largest consumer groups for male romance novels
I wonder why.
because they like seeing men show their emotions to other men.
I thought it was the same thing with guys, with the whole lesbian thing.
The desire for a threesome. There
Yeah.
probably is at least a little bit of that too, but I think it's more common for straight guys to fantasize about the threesome than it is for the kind of women who enjoy reading gay romance novels. Although I'm not a woman, so I can't comment definitively on that one way or the other.
I feel
I,
like
I will I will say, as a gay man who very much enjoys gay romance novels, it does make me laugh that I think uh, heterosexual women are even a larger consumer group than gay men when it comes to gay romance novels, which is just funny.
right. All right. So, um, the trio emphasized that when it comes to elements such as uh, go Goji Ryu karate, on which the Miyagi-Do style is based, and certain Japanese cultural details, they have leaned on actors like Tomita Okamoto, stunt coordinator Hiro Koda, and original Karate Kid screenwriter Robert Mark Kamen for guidance. Yeah, again, like do your research on things you don't know about. Like that's kind of a common thing with writing.
Yeah, if you're going to make use of a concept, then it behooves you to at least understand that concept.
Yeah, Dawn can attest this that stories I've written or are writing, I've done plenty of research or asked him to consult and stuff.
Yeah, and I do my best to comment when I can comment.
Mm-hmm. Like,
To the point of warranting a creative consultant credit sooner or later.
yeah. I mean, just doing research is kind of just writing 101.
Yeah, if you want to write about something, it behooves you to at least understand it. And if you're writing something completely foreign, then you at least need a good understanding of human behavior. Because if your characters are not in some way worthwhile and recognizable, then you're not going to be able to find a compelling story somewhere in there. That's why one of the greatest tips I ever got from one of my writing teachers was become a people watcher. Because if you understand human behavior, you'll understand character better.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Which goes back to the original point of, if you're a good writer, it shouldn't matter what race or gender or orientation or whatever the fuck your character is. You should be able to extrapolate from your onboard understanding of human nature what that would be like.
Yep.
And if you modern day writers of Hollywood are not smart enough to do that, then maybe you need to get the fuck out of the writing chair and give it to somebody who actually knows what they're doing,
I
like
don't know.
Brainstormer. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't really say I know what I'm doing because I'm more just flying at the seat of my own pants. So,
But number one, you're humble enough to at least admit that. Number two, you're willing to improve on your understanding. And number three, you want to improve on your understanding. Therefore, you're better than 99.999% of all the writers in Hollywood.
to be fair, that's not really saying much.
No, it's not a high bar, but that's the sad thing. These people make millions and billions of dollars, and they can't outdo some schmuck on the internet who has a podcast once a week.
Also, another channel where I do make my own pitches and rewrites of movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to see him put,
real effort.
if you want to see him put his money where his mouth is, as it were, then go there and watch that.
I will say I have scrapped many projects for videos of rewrites and pitches, just because I have watched. It's similar to how something you feel like when you watch a certain movie, like Hellboy 2019 or Birds of Prey. Like you,
Gods.
you don't really feel like there's passion there, honestly.
Also, dear Mike Mignola, I love you dearly. You've written some of the greatest comics I've ever read and some of my favorite comics ever. But what the fuck were you thinking trying to convince people that the 2019 Hellboy was better than the Guillermo del Toro version? What the actual fuck, man?
Yeah, I'm of the belief that the studio did a lot of tampering and like cut a lot of stuff.
I hope to God. I hope there's some version of the movie in some vault somewhere that could reasonably be called um uh better than the Guillermo del Toro version. I find it somewhat hard to believe because Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman were a match made in heaven, and those movies are amazing.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of which, I did scrap my Hellboy rewrite.
aw,
Yeah, it's just like I didn't. It was like the Captain Marvel thing. I tried to finish it, but
it just wasn't there.
yeah.
Yeah, I know you know what a good story is, Mike Mignola, so I'm willing to believe there was a studio gun to your head when you said those things. But still, um, you're the man who wrote Triumph and Torment, probably the best standalone Doctor Strange story ever written. I refuse to believe you're that dense.
Moving forward.
Yeah, moving on.
Also, if you do want to see a better Birds of Prey movie, if you know the original one sucked, I did a complete rewrite on my channel.
Mhm.
Also, there is a Batwoman one. Like I rewrote the Batwoman series too.
Mhm.
Probably should get around to working on the second season.
Mhm.
Anyway, we would have loved if there was a Miyagi son or daughter that was floating around in the lineage and the canon of the movie to play with, said Heald. But we inherited the story that felt like the natural continuation, where for better or worse, you are dealing with Johnny and Daniel as your protagonists. Again, I don't really see what the problem is with that.
Rachel?
Hello?
You cut out there, buddy. I don't know if you I don't know what you said.
I was reading.
I it got to the for better or worse. We
Okay.
inherited the
Okay. Yeah. Let me
best.
reread that. Okay.
Okay.
We would have loved if there was a Miyagi son or daughter that was floating around in the lineage and the canon of the movies or movie to play with, said Heald. But we inherited the story that felt like the natural continuation, where for better or worse, you are dealing with Johnny and Daniel as your protagonists.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind there being a son of or daughter of Miyagi somewhere in there. Especially if they went the route that made the most sense, which is have him be alienated from his own son in the same way that the neighbor in Home Alone was. And maybe that's the reason why Miyagi was so paternal to Daniel, was because he was hoping to kind of replace that father son relationship that he missed out on with his own child with Daniel. It also would have been interesting if the hypothetical son of Miyagi ended up being a villain in this story.
I like to point out that is very much similar to what is going on with Johnny, Miguel, and Robbie in Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm still sticking with the point that Johnny
ends up being the successor to Miyagi's legacy.
Yeah. Like there was a good video, and I need to find it and like send it to you at some point. Like, yeah. Okay. Mauriziano, who credited the showrunners for thoughtfully integrating Ecuadorian heritage into Miguel's story, acknowledged that the world of Cobra Kai doesn't always reflect the diversity of its San Fernando Valley setting, which, according to the 2019 U.S. Census figures, is 42% Hispanic. If you live in the valley and really the greater Los Angeles area, you know that there are so many different Latinos, Black people, people of Asian descent, he said. And while our show is catching up, I think a lot of shows, like everything in Hollywood, feel like they're catching up slowly.
Catching up to what? Your utopian ideal that makes no goddamn sense, or something actually resembling a quality standard? Because those aren't the same thing. You people have made it quite clear that you don't give a rat's ass about quality standards or anything resembling aesthetics, but you care far too much about your arbitrary morality.
Dude, that's
it makes no goddamn sense.
That's the actor who plays Miguel, not the author of the.
Okay, well, I apologize then for saying that, but still, because you're a part of Hollywood's overall culture, I feel my point wasn't that far off. You don't need to catch up with shit, sir. The idea that you do is some nonsensical utopian nonsense that makes no goddamn sense internally anyway. Make good shit, and people of all demographics will want to see it. There's the big, Zen mastery pay for simple installments of $29.99 mystery secret self-help thing to unlock. Just make good shit that will appeal to as many people as possible, and it'll end up appealing to as many people as possible. It's really not that hard. As with most things that are actually worth knowing, it's very simple when you get right down to it. Anyway, moving on. Did he step out again?
I'm back.
Okay, huzzah.
Alright, Schulzberg cited casting limitations in Atlanta where the show was filmed. When it comes to background casting, we are limited in making a high school on our show look exactly like a high school would look in Reseda, he said. According to U.S. Census figures, Hispanics make up 5% of the population of Atlanta and 10% of the population of Georgia, while Asians make up 5% of the population in the city and 4% statewide. Atlanta is 48% black, while Georgia is, as a whole, is 32%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the South, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Legitimately, I think, whatever, I'm going to sound like a racist either way. I would expect Asians kind of be more in on the East Coast, north, in like New York or something.
Or on the West Coast in like Hollywood or the surrounding suburbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, I believe Tim is from Texas, so that might be a little bit out of place, but I don't know.
Well, either way,
this would be an excellent time to have had Tim on here, but alas, he is busy conquering the world with bunnies, as was foretold on Identity in that one episode.
Okay, this is a show, but we don't show crowdfunding comics often, and really, I'm only doing this not to help a friend, but mainly because the merit of the product that they produce.
Yeah, it's good work, even if he weren't a close personal friend of the channel. But as it happens, he's also a close personal friend of the channel, and he deserves to have his shit shouted out. So
go check out Common America Volume 3 on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah. Although, please also feel free to check out the rest of Common America, because in Common America Volume 2, you might find a familiar face, albeit Lovecraftian in nature. Haha. I'm never gonna get bored of that.
Really? I had no idea. All right. Yet visual representation, such as that seen in the hallways of a high school, is just the first step toward meaningful representation. Okay, first off, guy who recently, well, relatively recently, 'cause I'm 21 now, so 3 years ago, graduated high school. Let me tell you, there were a lot of black kids in my high school. Okay, and then the second largest group of kids in my school were Hispanic. Hello, by the way,
Yeah.
or Latino, or whatever the fuck you want to call them. Doesn't matter.
Mhm. As long as it's not Latinx, because apparently every Latin person on Earth like instinctively recoiled from that phrase. I don't blame them.
I legitimately wanted to put my fist so long when you said it.
I case in point.
Anyway, ironically, white people were kind of a minority in the high school, from what I remember. Like one of my friends, who is white, I think he was like one of the only white people I remember in high school.
Mm.
So yeah,
On the other side of things, I believe I had 2 black kids in my high school. But they never got shit. In fact, they both were extremely popular. One as a class clown and the other is kind of a jock type. So, and I'm from the most rural conceivable part of Pennsylvania. So, checkmate.
yeah. But when you say visual representation, the thing is, there isn't really a lot of representation in actual high schools. I mean, there is, but it's to a varying degree on a case by case scenario.
And it's not intentional. It just sort of happens that way.
Yeah.
So, so a good way of achieving something approximating reality, if you must have it in this instance, would be to just let it happen by casting whoever is qualified to do the role. And if that person happens to be black, or happens to be Asian, or happens to be gay, or happens to be disabled, or happens to be any other fucking thing, so be it. You could just approach this from being completely laissez-faire about it, be completely hands off, and let the chips fall where they may.
Also,
Because yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Uh, no, please finish your thought, and then I'll just. It's not.
Yeah. Also, speaking as a visible minority because disabled, um, a lot of times when you force feed these demographics into casting, it comes off as pandering, especially when the character written for said actors or actresses are one-dimensional archetypes of that one aspect of themselves, as we were just talking about previously.
Yeah.
Now you make out.
Yeah. One of the quote unquote antagonists of Cobra Kai is like a jock bully.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's Asian.
Yeah. Which is about as anti-stereotypical as can be, because Asians are not often cast as jock characters. Off the top of my head, the only other Asian jock character I can think of is Quan from Danny Phantom, and he was a very, very minor character. He was Dash's sort of backup friend.
Oh, by the way, I did check out the video you sent me about Danny Phantom.
What did you think? As if I didn't already know.
Mixed bag, legitimately.
Uh-huh. Like, yeah, I had the same reaction. Like, She would have a good point, a good point, a good point, and then a point that made me roll my eyes. A good point, a
Yeah,
good point, a good point, and then a point that made me roll my eyes.
yeah, I think this is a discussion like for after stream.
Mhm.
But for the record, the guy acted like he acted like the Asian character guy acted
Mhm.
like a valley white dude jock.
Yeah. Mhm.
Anyway, like like this kind of just boils down to it doesn't matter who you really cast. Um, and this will come back later in the stream.
Mhm.
But yeah, it doesn't really matter who you cast. Whether it just matters on whether or not that actor can portray the character you have in mind. I mean, you wouldn't have casted that actor if they couldn't get the character.
Yeah. Now, granted, there should be at least some allowance made for the original aesthetics of the character if you're doing an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you shouldn't go out of your way to make a character look or be different than the original adaptation if you can avoid it.
Fair enough.
But for example, in the case of Chiwetel Ejiofor as Mordo, I don't care that Mordo was technically a Romanian count in the comics because Chiwetel Ejiofor is an amazing villain, and it looks like they're going to give him a lot of character development. So help me, I'm okay with it. I don't care.
Also,
Now, granted, if you cast Black Panther with a white dude or even an Asian dude, Steve would be on fire, and they would probably be rightly so.
oh yeah, no, that's completely stupid. I mean, yeah, a character where being black is kind of intrinsic.
Yeah.
But to also bring up a more modern example of different casting, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
But,
don't care.
Yeah, we already covered this when we covered the trailer in November. But yeah, he's a great actor, and I honestly think he's going to do well as Commissioner Gordon. Like, he even looks like Commissioner Gordon with, you know.
He's probably going to end up being a very badass version of Commissioner Gordon, and that'll be fine. Granted, I heard that in the original, like, Snyderverse plans, we were going to get J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, which I'm kind of disappointed we're not really going to get now.
We kind of did in Justice League. And it again, like, I just wish we've already talked so much at length of the Snyderverse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to keep talking.
Which means we're definitely going to have to review the Snyder Cut when it comes out.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Do you get to hear their stories being told? Meaningful representation means you get to find out the person's story from their perspective.
Or you could write them well, and we don't need to be told shit.
Well,
because
I don't know. Like, I understand that. Like, I get that meaningful representation means you get to find out the person's story from their perspective.
Yeah, but in context, this is mostly woo.
Yeah, fair.
Plus, there's the old writing adage of whenever possible, show, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
If you want us to care about the stories of marginalized identities, again in air quotes, tell good stories, including characters with marginalized identities, and the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. So hello, that sort of stuff. Yeah, say hey.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah. All right. So moving forward, as they ride their Netflix bump into the first season produced in COVID-19 times and under the streamer's banner, the creators declined to comment on details of upcoming seasons, which they should because they don't want to spoil anything, and I agree.
Mm-hmm.
They did, however, confirm that introducing characters of Asian descent is definitely something that is in our plans going forward, and tease the possibility that familiar faces like Aisha, a kind-hearted Cobra Kai student played by actress Nicole Brown, who was conspicuously written out of season 3, would very well come back to West Valley High in the future. Any character who has appeared in the Karate Kid universe has the potential to return," said Hurwitz. Yeah, okay, so Betsy stuff said some stuff here. "I have a problem. I only have two friends and I can't measure up to either of them. They're both 20 like me, but both of them were married and live on their own and make more money than I do, even though I work my butt off every day." Wait, you're 20? Holy shit, we're older than you.
Yeah, both of us, which is kind of odd.
Yeah. Um,
Not to discourage you or anything.
yeah, no.
That city stuff. That's just a little bit surprising. But in your defense, you are 20. Plenty of people, myself included, make it almost the entire way through their 20s without knowing what they want to do with themselves.
Yeah.
And when I turned 20, ended up being forced to drop out of college because of crippling anxiety that almost made my heart explode. So if you're not almost if your heart isn't almost exploding every day, then you're doing better than I was at 20.
I'm 21. But look, I'm just gonna say this. You're still relatively young, so you got a whole life to live still.
Yeah, good for your friends for getting a jump on it, but in all honesty, they're probably in the minority in the modern
Yeah.
setting. Most people almost make it to 30 before they even have any idea what they're doing with their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I have a pair of friends that have been dating since freshman year, and during their, I believe, either junior or senior year, they got engaged. And I think they're still engaged because I haven't seen anything about a wedding. So they've been engaged for a few years now. I will tell you, they more just annoyed me with their lovey-dovey bullshit, as lovebirds tend to do.
It's like in that one episode of Seinfeld with the Snoopy thing. And I'm just now realizing that I don't think Brainstormer has seen much of Seinfeld, so he probably won't get that reference.
Nope. But yeah, no, don't worry about it. Like I said, like we said, you've only lived a quarter of your life so far, man. Don't worry about it. Just keep on moving forward, doing what you do. Sooner or later, you're gonna.
Also, don't necessarily define better than you as has a home and a family, because the thing about normal lives is that they're normal, and the thing about normality is nobody pays attention to it. Normality is synonymous, at least in my opinion, with mediocrity. The reason why we don't see stories very often about quote unquote normal people is because normality is boring. Extreme success and extreme failure can be interesting, but normality is just kind of the background noise of history. They don't write history books about normal people. They write history books about people that have either succeeded so great that they changed the world or failed so fucking hard that they changed the world. So strive to be one of those people, if anything, man.
Preferably the former.
Yeah, preferably, yeah, don't crash and burn horribly, because that would be very good. But if if you try every avenue of success available to you and you can't find anything, then you can at least fail in style. I mean, again, referring to myself, that appears to be the route that I'm going with, but hopefully I can spin that around sooner or later.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Yeah, just keep living your life, man.
Yeah, do what you qualify as success. What's your personal definition of success?
Mm-hmm.
And then strive. don't define yourself by what other people expect of you. Define yourself by what you want and your ability to get what you want, more or less.
Yeah.
And if that includes a home and a family, then you'll find somebody who will be willing to share that dream with you. If it doesn't, then bollocks to it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on.
Yep.
Make some seasons more means more chances to bring in new characters. They say each season, as we're writing, we're looking for new underdog stories and new chances to populate the universe, said Heald. Well, we always have our eyes towards representing today's society as richly and as accurately as possible. They're going to be making a couple of these. That's the end of it.
That was painful. I mean, it's always painful whenever something extends beyond a week, but Jesus Christ.
Remember that time we had to do 3 weeks?
Oh my God.
I can't remember the article, but goddamn.
Yeah. I hate when people like hearing themselves talk so much that they end up having to make the same point over and over again, because then we end up having to make similar points in response to it, and it makes it feel extremely redundant. But
Right,
hopefully, maybe our various repetitions of obvious shit will eventually get through their heads.
Yeah. All right. So Batsy stuff says what I want is not to be bored all the time when I have free time. My two friends have significant others, and they told me they wish they could be single sometimes. I told them that they wouldn't give that up even for just a second if they had the choice. They told me I'm right.
Which is probably true, because we are a social species that is wired to care about the love and affection of others.
I
But
would say, like, I have a similar problem because right now I have too much free time because I lost. I don't know if I was fired or I just lost it because of COVID. But I lost my job.
you were laid off at any rate from your job.
Either way, it fucking sucks. Um, but yeah, in my free time, I write. I do stories. I have hobbies to keep myself occupied, and I would recommend that. And I mean, if you do, I would also say like try some other hobbies, like
Yeah,
or
that's
one, yeah, and just
that's the best way to go about it. If you don't have to deal with the rest of the world for a while, then try to become the best possible version of yourself, and that means develop whatever skills and whatever hobbies that you would like. What would you choose to do if you had nothing else to do? What gets you out of bed in the morning, man? I guess is my question. 'Cause that's I prefer to think of that as the best question. With each and every day, you should have something that is a reason to get up and get going. Um, and trust me, there will be times when you won't be able to come up with anything, and it'll be depressing. But
um, I would also recommend socialize, like talk to people online.
yeah,
Uh, not just your friends, but just people like us or like just whoever. I suppose like within the kind of community that we are part of.
yeah, because honestly, in real life, I have maybe one friend that I see on the regular, um, or anything resembling the regular, and he is usually dealing with his own shit, including recently he got diagnosed with cancer. He's fine, which is why I'm bringing it up, because I wouldn't have brought it up if he was still going through it. But yeah, I don't really get much socialization apart from the friends I make online, and it works. I'll tell you. Like I have probably 2 or 3 times the amount of friends online than I ever did in any social circle outside of online. So find a group that you can jive with, and you can contribute something to, and see where it takes you.
Hmm.
'Cause that-
Food gets me out of bed.
Hmm?
Betsy stuff says food gets me out of bed.
well, I mean in a broader like in a broader sense, like what motivates you, I guess is the question.
I'd still be,
Not just in the moment, but as like a fundamental drive.
yeah.
And it can be even something as simple as a fear of failure. Trust me, that one works. The notion of I'm not going to die alone, I am not going to be a useless failure, really, really works as a means to get your ass out of bed in the morning. I speak from personal experience. Because that one haunts me a bit. The idea that I'm either going to die alone or be a failure, as anyone who's listened to this podcast long enough knows.
Have you ever done the therapy? Like, I feel like I've asked that before, but
I've tried. I had some good experiences with a couple of counselors when I was in high school. The one time I've sought therapy out, outside of that, the guy was a vindictive asshole who basically on our first meeting told me I was crazy, which is not something you're supposed to even say when you're a therapist. You're supposed to provide a substantive diagnosis. And I walked out because there was no way we would be able to help each other there.
what do you mean you crawl down?
I have a walker for when I need to walk. Fuck off. And I also have a power scooter now for when um I need to go longer distances.
Hmm.
And also shut up.
All right. So, moving forward with the other articles and stuff we need to do. Don sent me this.
Hmm.
Actually, he sent pretty much everything in this podcast this week.
Mm.
This is from CBR.com. Star Wars Toxic Masculinity is the real reason Anakin Skywalker fell. This is by Margaret Lockyer. It's published January 7th, 2021. This is an official website.
Yeah, huh? And people get paid to write this shit.
While I'm here struggling.
It's okay. It's okay. Let the hate flow through you. And that has never been more appropriate of a phrasing.
I'm gonna get a beer. A root beer.
Do it. And that also was very serendipitous phrasing.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Don't you mean you'll strike back? I'm sorry. That one was low. Even by my standards.
I'm back. So Batsy stuff. I'm going to die alone. I've never been in the relationship my entire life. Out of the 21 years I've been living, I live in Western Kentucky. Oh, you're only a state away from me, dude. That is weird. Not a lot of people I'm compatible with that are accepting.
I feel your pain there, dude. I have similar
Yeah.
issues regularly, but like I said, the tendency to dig in your heels and say, "Fuck you, universe! I'm not going to die alone. I'm not going to be a useless failure. I'm going to amount to something," can be an amazing motivator to get you out of bed. If the world has cast you as the loser, then tell it to go fuck itself. That's my solution. If
Yeah. No,
if the cards are stacked against you, then reshuffle the fucking thing. That's the best route I can. And believe me, I know what you're going through because I have way more of those days than probably is technically healthy, but also, you know, I I have friends on here. I have some kind of semblance of an existence on YouTube and things and so forth. So I'm not entirely a useless failure most of the time anyway. And I live in rural Pennsylvania, so I know what it's like to live in the fucking middle of nowhere where there's nothing to do and nowhere to go. But again, that's all the more reason to make something of yourself online. Find something on which you have a unique perspective and make a YouTube channel. Start making videos on it and see where it goes. And when you make said channel, pass it along our way and we'll subscribe.
yeah. I will offer some advice. Yeah, similar tone. Again, and I gotta say, like, you're 21 years old, dude. You've barely lived your life yet. Okay.
Yeah, you got some time.
Yeah.
The the good thing about the 20s is they're basically made to fuck around and figure out what you're doing. So if you need to spend a few years fucking around and figuring out what works for you, then you can spend a few years fucking around and figuring out what works for you.
Yeah. And this is like cliche and cheesy as hell, but I mean it sincerely. There is someone out there for everyone. Just don't be afraid to look.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always the biggest problem with people is they're always too afraid to take that step to find that someone.
Yep.
So I think that's enough soul bearing for right now.
Yeah. I seriously hope that helped that city stuff. And also just because I know this occasionally also is a thing that comes across your mind when you're in that kind of mindset. Don't let the world beat you. Don't just opt out. Don't end it all because then that's just another kind of failure. And as horrifying as failure is, a failure you don't even have the opportunity to learn from is a worse one. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Moving on.
I'm about to say stuff replied again. It's weird. I go to an art school, but none of the guys are gay. See, that is actually really weird. I'm not gonna lie.
That's statistically unusual.
Yeah, they're a bunch of sketchy stoner frat boy types. Okay, now that's just fuck.
That
You gotta be fucking with us on that.
makes kind of sense. The guy who wrote my channel's theme music for me that I used in my title sequence, his name was literally Joe Stoner. Like that was his birth name. And he also was kind of the most generic hippie you can imagine. Although, to the best of anyone's knowledge, he had never really done drugs, which was funny. He just had Asperger's autism and ADD.
I'm not flamboyant, and I'm not into flamboyant guys, and that's all I ever see around here.
I empathy here too is a thing. Um, have you tried dating apps? Just out of curiosity, that sort of stuff. Um, because if you're a guy who's looking for guys, I can kind of help you here because there's some apps that are better for looking for masked guys than others. For example, the one I've had the most luck with is probably Scruff. Um, if you're a girl looking for masked guys, you have a lot further pickings, and I'm not sure what to tell you if you're a guy looking for girls, because that's
Tender. I mean, granted, that's just for one night stands, but
Mhm.
like it originally was a dating app, but I think it just really.
Yeah, as with usual on the internet, it devolved into its basest form because, of course, it did.
I think the actual creators did embrace that is just a sex thing now.
Yeah, they ran with it, and I don't fault them for it because why wouldn't you run with it? Anyway, like
Yeah.
I said, hope that information was constructive. That titty stuff, and speaking as a guy who's a bottom who's also masculine, I know exactly what you're going through because flamboyant guys can be a pain in the fucking ass. Not literally, but I'm king.
He
The
does
gay
say,
guy made a gay joke, folks. Lol.
um, I kid you not, I'm being serious as a heart attack. Okay. Yeah, dating apps suck. I don't like people taking pictures with their shirts off and opening their pants and strange and inappropriate stuff. That's fair. Um,
I also agree.
Although I would try to find like those more, I'd say Christian Mingle or like dating apps like those, like where it's more actually trying to find a relationship kind of deal.
Although that only works if you're Christian or being Christian is significantly important to you, which might not be.
Well, that's the only one I came to mind that's actually about like serious relationships.
I would recommend maybe eHarmony,
Oh,
because or Match.com. They do a bunch of like personality matching type things,
mm-hmm.
that narrow down the field to people you would hypothetically be more interested in,
Yeah. But
at least.
again, like I said, I wouldn't. I again, like I'd say, like I wouldn't sweat it so much right now because you're
Yeah.
still you are in your early 20s, dude. Like you're
You-
barely out of your teens.
Yeah, you're also in an art school, so clearly you've got some kind of career direction. So um you'll find somebody, and trust me, if you can't find anybody you like as a gay dude in rural Kentucky, you wait until you get your art degree and go to like New York or Los Angeles or somewhere. There's plenty of gay people over there. As to whether you'd be able to make a meaningful relationship with any of them, that's a different question. But you also should be able to find enough worthwhile about yourself and the world that doesn't involve banging somebody to keep yourself going until then.
Cost too much, and I still have my parents, and as long as I live with them, I have to follow their rules, and that's one of them. No dating apps. Okay, I got nothing for that. Like,
Your parents are being a little bit strict, but I respect your ability to follow the rules.
yeah,
Because I probably could not deal with that bullshit if
mm,
it were me.
yeah. I
But at least for now, you've got some time before the existential dread desperately needs to set in. So occupy yourself with other things until you can find somebody who you have a meaningful connection with. And once you've got something to show for it, then I'm sure somebody will be attracted to what you've got going on.
Mhm. Okay, so back to the article, which we have not started.
Yeah.
All right, so
But this was more important. He
oh
was having a bad day, and
yeah,
somebody needs when somebody's having a day like that, it helps to hear from people who care. So,
yeah.
and again, I'm speaking from experience.
So back to trying to be entertaining.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, so Star Wars Toxic Masculinity is the real reason Anakin Skywalker fell. Star Wars Anakin Skywalker falls to the dark side as a result of the toxic masculinity in which he is raised and trained. Again, this is written by Margaret Lockyer. Lockyer, yeah. This was published January 7th, 2021. Darth Vader of the Star Wars saga is one of the most famous and recognizable villains in cinema history. When he was first introduced in 1977 Star Wars A New Hope, little was known about his deeply tragic backstory, but years later, the prequels detailed young Anakin Skywalker's tragic fall from the Jedi's chosen one to the Sith Lord Darth Vader. While he was manipulated by the Emperor, the real reason Anakin fell to the dark side was the environment of toxic masculinity in which he was raised and trained by the Jedi. Okay, for one, there were plenty of female Jedi. So the whole time,
Yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume that she would say that um all those female Jedi had internalized misogyny because they were raised in the same environment. I'm guessing. I second that sigh of despair and anguish.
toxic masculinity does not mean that all masculinity is toxic.
Okay, define a version of masculinity that's either neutral or positive, then. That's and also define a version of femininity that isn't something perfect and saintly while we're at it.
A widow, a black widow.
Yeah, femme fatale. Again, just this is the perfect example. Elizabeth Bathory. There is your proof that toxic or toxic femininity is a thing if you ever needed any. She literally drained the blood of virgin women because she thought it would keep her younger forever, and that was so central to her idea of beauty that she couldn't bear to live with the thought of aging.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing with a black widow is it's a woman who lures in men, marries them to get their money, and then kills them.
Yeah, or or a femme fatale, as any spy movie aficionado would tell you, is somebody who uses the power of their attractiveness to turn off the brains of male characters that look at her and use that lack of guard to usually kill them or capture them, depending.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, okay. It refers to the expectation that men prioritize stoicism, violence, and other stereotypes of masculinity. To be fair, most of that stuff isn't really masculine per se. That's more. I mean, okay, those are masculine traits, sure, but what context for those stereotypes?
Okay, and further to that, the reason most men engage in the practice of stoicism, either on purpose via like intellectual consideration or just intuitively by dealing with your emotions internally instead of expressing them externally, is usually to protect other people from their own personal bullshit. And usually, a person tends to be more stoic around people they consider to be vulnerable. Because when someone else needs space to express their emotions, you've got to shelve yours for the time being so that you can give them the appropriate space to deal with their emotions. In other words, stoicism is usually done to serve other people, not to serve the self. And yet somehow you can interpret it as toxic because reasons. And in the case of the Jedi, we know that's why they did most of their stoic bullshit, because they're literally a order of warrior monks and space wizards who are tasked with protecting an entire galaxy and providing spiritual counsel to an entire galaxy when it needs it. Moving forward. When he comes back. Do 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 do. It's the end of the world as we. Okay.
Ah. I was
You okay there, dude?
I was in a little sprinting around my house. Yeah, back quick.
Uh-huh.
God, I felt like I was doing gym class all over again.
Well, if it's any consolation to you, that's how I feel anytime I have to walk anywhere. So, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Oh, God, I hated gym class, especially on Fridays where you had to run a mile.
Yeah, I can relate. I think
Yeah.
all nerds on some level can relate to the hatred of gym class.
I mean, I actually did pretty well in gym class. Mainly, you just had to participate. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't mind it. I used to get to play Batman sometimes. That was fun. Oh, shit. I'm good. I am good.
Take your time.
Whew.
We're in no hurry. We've still got plenty of time.
All right. It refers to the expectation. Sorry, I read that. All right. Well, actually, what did I miss when I disappeared for a sec?
Me explaining that usually when people choose to adopt stoicism, either intellectually or intuitively, it's to protect other people.
Right.
Usually people that are considered more vulnerable and more emotionally needy than the person practicing stoicism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And to be fair, that is kind of Anakin for most of the prequel series.
Yeah. This really isn't a stoicism problem or a masculinity problem. It's the Jedi and the Sith are both fucked in the head problem.
Yeah.
In the sense that the Jedi try to stifle all emotions, even the positive ones, and the Sith try to embrace emotions, but often at the expense of the positive ones. Which is why me and a lot of other Star Wars fans have always said, fuck you both, the Grey Jedi are the only ones in the galaxy using their goddamn brains. You need both aspects of the Force to make it work properly.
Yep. And I don't know how they ever. I don't know how the Jedi Order ever like fucked up.
Splintered
Yeah.
into its two extremist groups. It's funny because not even the majority of them all did. It was two very small, like, fringe radical groups that tried to do one way or the other,
Yeah.
and because they were on both poles of the issue, they ended up going to war with each other. And I guess the Jedi either said "fuck you," come back when you're done having a pissing contest, or they might have all died in the crossfire. I don't know,
I feel like it's a mixture of both,
which is
honestly.
just sad. Yeah, some of them probably died in the crossfire. Some of them probably survived long enough to say, sorry, but this place is sacred to us, so you can fuck all the way off until you calm down, you privileged children,
Yeah.
brats."
All right. These stereotypes are detrimental to men and women as well as society as a whole. No, not really.
It very much depends on what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
And once again, we kind of run into an issue where you tried to provide a definition of what you mean by toxic masculinity, but that definition contains terms that itself need to be defined.
Mm-hmm. Um. Yeah, like you need context for this stuff. Is the thing. Like, what is the context of your defined terms? Is my question.
Yeah, what framework are we supposed to be going in? Which is why I brought up, when you mentioned toxic masculinity, please define for a positive form of masculinity or a negative form of femininity, for that matter. Because if you can't do either of those things, then you're leaving us with the impression that you think the majority of masculinity is toxic, and you think the majority of femininity could never possibly do anything wrong. And that's a very fucked and biased position that you can fuck right off with if you genuinely believe that. And if me even suggesting there might be a negative thing about women or a positive thing about men offends you and makes you think that I'm being misogynistic, then you can also fuck off. Because I can guarantee you there's plenty of women who know perfectly well that there are women who are assholes. And they're assholes because of their definition of womanhood, vis-a-vis the head cheerleader, queen bee, bitch type. Most, if not all, of the mean cheerleader type were mean cheerleader types because their definition of what a real woman is and how some other girl didn't meet up to the standards. But for some reason, we don't refer to toxic femininity when we're talking about the Ashleys from Recess or Regina George from Mean Girls. We only talk about toxic masculinity when we're talking about how the Jedi are fucking morons. Moving forward.
Mm-hmm. All right. The Jedi Order raised Anakin in an environment saturated with toxic masculinity ideals, and the outcome was his tragic turn from light to dark. Again, that's more because most of the Jedi Order did not like Anakin. They were
Yeah, because he was too old to begin the training to begin with. He only got in the order because Qui-Gon died. And Master Yoda, i.e., the most sensitive user of the light side of the Force in existence at the time, already sensed fear in him when he started off, which already means he was sort of doomed from the start.
right.
Which might explain why they were so hard on him, because they were afraid this guy has more midi-chlorians than any living Jedi, so if he goes rogue, we're fucked. And
right.
incidentally, That's not exactly a very wrong-headed fear, now is it? Because that's exactly what did happen.
Again,
Granted, they were mostly to blame for him eventually falling to the dark side, but still.
Yeah, again, like the whole reason why Anakin fell to the dark side was more just the incompetence of the Jedi Council than anything.
Yeah, the incompetence of the Jedi Council and the opportunistic manipulation of Palpatine taking advantage of the incompetence
Also,
of the Jedi Council.
the less than ideal situation with Obi-Wan being Anakin's master. Because he treated Anakin more like a brother instead of a student or like a surrogate son than anything.
Right. Which is why, if Qui-Gon had lived, Sidious's plan would have been fucked. Because Qui-Gon was as close to the Grey Jedi that was possible in the Order. Therefore, if Qui-Gon had lived, Anakin probably could have balanced out his dark side and his light side, and Sidious wouldn't have had any obvious holes to fill.
Right.
And if he didn't have any obvious holes to fill, then Anakin probably would have grown to trust the Jedi, in particular, the Jedi that are actually worth trusting, like Qui-Gon and Yoda. And then when he felt love for Padme, and probably even after the secret marriage, if Anakin had come clean to the Jedi Council and been like, "I apologize, Master, but my lady seems to be with child," they probably would have been understanding in this one instance, and then Luke and Leia probably could have been raised in the temple from like their youth.
Also the thing was I believe that Qui-Gon Jinn was going, prior to his death, was going to be promoted to a Jedi Council member so he could help reform the Jedi Order.
He was.
Yeah.
And in actuality, it goes even deeper than that, because it was Qui-Gon's death that eventually caused Dooku to decide to leave the Jedi Order. So, yeah, everything in Star Wars probably could have been solved if Anakin had had a father figure in the form of Qui-Gon.
So,
which goes back to my previous point from the previous article, which is most often toxic, quote unquote, forms of masculinity arise with disproportionate compensation for vulnerability. And that kind of disproportionate compensation for vulnerability is a response to loss, absence, and trauma, particularly the absence of constructive role models, like father figures.
Okay, so moving forward.
Yeah.
The Jedi do not intentionally encourage toxic masculinity. However, they foster it within Anakin because they teach him to fear all of his emotions. Not to fear his emotions, but to suppress them, to bury them. Which I'm sure
and I would agree this is a very stupid tactic, which is the ancient dichotomy of the Jedi and the Sith. The Jedi ignore all emotions, even the positive ones, and the Sith are allegedly out to embrace emotions, but often to the exclusion of the positive ones.
Sorry.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's part of toxic masculinity or even results in toxic masculinity. No one even explained to Anakin what the difference between a man and a woman was until he was like 13 or some shit. I mean, he thought Padme was an angel when he first saw her, and he was like, what, 11 in Phantom Menace?
Yeah. Damn it. Yeah, the thing with the Jedi was, for some odd reason, like, I'm gonna get into Clone Wars actually, because it just like with the Clone Wars, not like the show, but like the actual event itself within the universe.
Mm-hmm.
The yeah the Jedi's incompetence on the fact that they were promoted to generals of an army when the fact they are supposed to be peacekeepers, and also they're technically monks who have never really fought a
Yeah,
full
they're
on.
supposed to be spiritual advisors, not really anything more.
Yeah,
And also their incompetence in the sense of their insecurity, because the main reason for all of the restrictive aspects of the Jedi Order and the Jedi Code, when you get right down to it, is because they fear losing control. They fear the dark side so much that they actively shun anything that might potentially lead to it. And as we just went over, in doing so, they throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because they know love can eventually lead to loss, they try to suppress love.
yeah. See, and again, that is such a stupid idea. On the fact that if one is capable of love, one also like this is more of a philosophical thing, but I think philosophical, or at least
Yeah, it is.
okay. Like someone who has loved and lost before, like myself, depending on the person, and again, this is individual. This is a case by case scenario as well. There are people who can handle loss better than others, but really, what matters is if you are capable of telling people and teaching them that loss is just a part of life, as well as love and all the other emotions and stuff.
Yeah, if anything, the thing that eventually screwed the Jedi over was their own hypocrisy. Because despite their admonition that fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, they fear loss of what I guess you could broadly term like piety or purity. They're so obsessed with remaining pure and above the fray that they forget that there are things in the fray that they need to remain stable. And so they force essentially all humanity out of Anakin because there's, and also, as much as Sidious did twist the knife when it came to twisting Anakin against the Jedi, they were afraid of him. That isn't false. I mean, again, to go over it, as stupid as the plot convenience as the midi-chlorians are, Anakin has more midi-chlorians than the fucking Grand Master of the Order. And he's supposed to be the chosen one. So if he ever goes dark, they're fucked. And as a result of their fear of not being able to control him, they are overly strict with him, and that leads to exactly the same failure that they were trying to prevent.
Yeah, like it's
And you could make a similar argument with the Sith, because their root problem is also hypocrisy, because they want to be free to pursue their own personal power, but they want to pursue that personal power by dominating others and preventing others from being free. Hence the hypocrisy of the Sith. And of course, as Sidious himself told us, with the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, his own master, by the way, the only thing he was afraid of was losing his power. Well, if you're afraid of losing power, you can't wield it freely now, can you? You have to spend time hoarding it and protecting it and putting it behind walls, which
yeah,
is the exact thing that they bitch at the Jedi for doing.
it's yeah. So, and again, you know what? No, I'll save anything I have to save later because. He fears that if they catch him expressing any emotion, he will be punished. That is not a healthy way to learn emotional intelligence. Yeah, no shit. It's not portrayed as a good thing, or it's portrayed as a bad thing, which is what it is.
Yeah, that it's portrayed as the corruption of a dying order.
Yeah, like legitimately, I'd say if if Palpatine wasn't there, the Jedi would have been the most dangerous force in the galaxy.
Yeah, they would have died anyway. Is the thing. Even without the Sith moving things along, they were a dying order to begin with because they had gotten so rigid in their own dogma and so hypocritical in their own ideology that they were beginning to degrade and dilapidate themselves. It's why the rule of two was so effective because Darth Bane rightfully saw that the Jedi would be ready to battle the Sith as they were, not the Sith as they were going to be. They were used to single-minded, savage Sith lords who basically try to brute force everything. But with in the case of the rule of two, the focus wasn't on brute force. It was on diplomacy. It was on manipulation. It was on coercion. It was on subtle puppet mastering. That's why the rule of two was so successful, because the Sith had accurate criticisms of the Jedi. As warped as their lens they viewed it through might be, they did have accurate criticisms of the Jedi, to which the Jedi would never respond. And so the Sith became proactive and chose to prepare for the next battle, not the battle they had just fought. Whereas the Jedi spent 1,000 years resting on their laurels, and the Sith had been selective breeding the best candidates for Sith Lord status for the last 1,000 years. It's the difference of the complacent establishment versus the hungry underdog, the one who has the fire to make their dreams happen.
Yeah. It actually creates feelings of isolation and desperation and amplifies aggressive and anger-driven responses. Again, no shit. What the Jedi did to Anakin was wrong. No one's saying that it wasn't.
Yeah, the question here is why you are conflating this with a concept like toxic masculinity. Because it wasn't his masculinity or his understanding of masculinity that was the problem. It was hypocrisy and philosophical nonsensicalness.
Yeah,
in both the case of the Sith and the Jedi, which is exactly why Anakin was necessary to bring balance to the Force. And also, interestingly enough, why it was kind of inevitable that he had to fall to the dark side in order to do so. Because the problem with the Force at the time of the prequel trilogy was actually that there wasn't enough darkness to balance out the light. The light had become complacent, and the dark was all but vanished. So naturally, in order to bring actual balance to the Force, he had to create a situation. Anakin, through his actions, however inadvertently they may have been, had to let the dark side be dominant for a while in the same way the light side had just previously been, and then eventually they would come to some kind of equalizing arrangement. Or to put it in Snoke's words, darkness rises and light to meet it.
Mm-hmm. This lack of emotional intelligence is both a cause and result of toxic masculinity, which is the path that transformed an earnest and open Anakin Skywalker into the angry and hateful Darth Vader. Yes and no. Not toxic masculinity, obviously, but really, Anakin fell because it's It's the whole trying to change your destiny.
Or live up to your destiny. There's an old saying that says you'll often meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Which is to say the more you the more likely it is that that's all part of the plan.
Yeah, is the fact that he couldn't accept loss, mostly because of his mother, who he failed to save years prior
Yeah.
to.
And part of that is an extension of the Jedi's failure to want to accept darkness, because, like it or not, very much in a yin versus yang kind of situation here, which is fitting because the Jedi and the Sith are both very heavily on Easternism. You need the dark and the light. You need both aspects of human nature. You need the hedonistic, animalistic emotions, and you need the high-minded, abstract guiding principles to make a functioning being work. So it's inevitable that Anakin would become an angsty brat who can't control his emotions because the Jedi were repressed old fuddy-duddies who had become too comfortable on their laurels, basically.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention the fact that they are, well, I mean, you already brought it up, but they are hypocritical to a fucking T.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that their Jedi temple is an old Sith temple, repurposed.
Yeah. And nobody ever thought this would be an issue. Like, we're going to build our light side stronghold on a dark side nexus. What could possibly go wrong?
Like,
Well, I don't know. One Sith Lord could get inside its walls and use that darkness to blind your asses for a good generation or so. But what could possibly go wrong from that?
Bad City Stuff says, correction, now I'm down to one friend. I just lost my other best friend. They stabbed me in the back. They're lost. Sorry.
Okay, what happened? Like, in the space of the conversation, you've lost that friend, or what the fuck?
Well, first off, I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah. Second of all, what happened? If you don't mind talking about it. Brainstormer?
Yeah, I'm right here. Just
Waiting for him to respond?
yeah.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was because StreamYard had crashed on me or if it was because you left again or what. So just checking.
I will say, yeah, no, I agree. Their loss, because if they stabbed you in the back, that kind of means they
Yeah.
weren't really your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They told me that all I do is complain to them, and I told him that's not true because we talk about movies all the time. He got mad and told me to get my life in order. Okay. No, that does.
Well, I mean, you should be allowed to complain. If you're sad, your friends should have your back on that. Now, granted, it sounds like he may have been trying to be constructive about it. It sounds like he might have been trying to give you some kind of reality check. But that being said, if he knows you're like a long-term sad, then a more constructive way to go about it might have been to organize some kind of intervention instead of basically telling you to fuck off.
Yeah. It's just out of the blue is the thing. Well, yeah, I stand by what I said earlier then. Like,
Yeah. Well, dude, if you ever need to talk, then we'll be here for you. We both have like Twitter and Discord and stuff. So if you need to talk to somebody, then shoot either one of us a message.
yeah. So we're
Yeah. Back to the thing.
yeah. Um, the I don't read that. If the Jedi had allowed Anakin to express emotions from his young age and utilize healthy coping mechanisms, he would have been prepared when he was overcome with love and lust for Padme during Star Wars: The Attack of the Clones. Therefore, instead of being rash and secretive, he might have approached the situation with a level head. Again, you're not wrong, but the toxic masculinity thing.
Yeah, the conflating this issue with toxic masculinity is where I'm drawing the line here. Because again, if we really want to examine this on like a practical level, the biggest the biggest win for Sidious was when Darth Maul killed Qui-Gon. Because without a force sensitive father figure who had some knowledge of both ends of the force, both ends of the spectrum, he was able to point out the very obviously there flaws of the Jedi and point out the possible alternative of the Sith, however fucked that alternative was. And even after Anakin killed all the younglings, he was still fully aware that the Sith was the shittiest of possible solutions to this of this problem. But because the Grey Jedi can essentially go fuck themselves, I guess. Nobody ever offered him the reasonable middle ground. And in any case, what was necessary for the overall health of the Force was the dark side kind of rising to even out the light side. Because what the problem had been in the preceding 1,000 years, which the Jedi are stupid for not noticing, is the light side was so dominant for so long it became stagnant and orthodoxy driven, and the dark side was all but banished to the fringes and left to its own devices to get stronger and stronger and stronger as time went by. So you had a ridiculously overblown, over-involved establishment, and you had literally two overpowered mavericks trying to bring it down. And all it took was essentially one card pulled from the House of Cards, and the entire thing came crumbling down.
That's a stuff. Chancellor Palpatine, Count Dooku, General Cleavage, and Darth Maul or Darth Brooks are my favorite Sith Lords.
Yeah. That's
Why the fuck did I think of General Grievous but with boobs when I heard General Cleavage?
I think that's part of the joke, at least.
I need some bleach.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god, that's fucking horrifying. Anyway. Similarly, the Jedi should have taught him how to deal with the separation anxiety he had from being taken from his mother. The visions he had of her death and suffering would still be painful, but he would be able to cope with them. Also, he would have been able to seek genuine help after her death instead of isolating himself. Again, you're not wrong, but I fail to see how this relates to toxic masculinity and is really just pointing the an utter ineptitude of the Jedi Order.
Of the Jedi Order. It's not toxic masculinity. It's failed orthodoxy that appears to be the main problem here.
Yeah.
Also, there's a case to be made that Sidious influenced Anakin to have the dreams with me. Because a lot of his psychic dreams appear to have been Sidious using the pre-existing dark side presence of the temple to influence Anakin's mind. So again, the greatest victory for Sidious came even before he met Anakin. It came when Qui-Gon died. Now, granted, if the Jedi were smart, they would have given Anakin to somebody like Mace Windu, who also kind of had one foot in both worlds. But emotional child-driven decisions, therefore, here's the surrogate brother when what you really need is a surrogate father figure. And again, it may very well have been the fact that the Force itself needed Anakin to fall to the dark side because it needed to balance out the overblown orthodoxy the Jedi had become in the last 1,000 years. Maybe.
Mm. All right.
Moving forward.
After failing to stop the death of his mother or even having the ability to mourn healthily, Anakin was traumatized and feared the cycle of loss would repeat itself. Again, yeah, and that's kind of the point, is Anakin's inability to accept loss leads him to turning to play, and also, again, the fact that the Jedi are kind of, again, fucking stupid.
Yeah. But this isn't toxic masculinity. This toxicity comes from loss and trauma. It doesn't come from male gender norms or socialization. And also, while we're on this topic, him being told from an early age that he was the chosen one also probably didn't do him any favors, because it probably made him narcissistic. And probably made it less likely that he was able to care about other people. And given that one of the reasons the Jedi emphasize stoicism is because stoicism is a useful tool for helping other people. If Anakin didn't have any interest in helping other people, but just furthering his own power, well, there's your problem. So probably telling him that he was the chosen one, or that he might have been, didn't do him any favors.
Yeah. All right. Therefore, when there was a threat to Padme's well-being, he turned to the Emperor and the dark side of the Force for help. He was drawn to the dark side for its potential to control life and death, and he was driven away from the Jedi and the light side by the purposeful lack of emotional support. Again, I don't disagree, but same thing has to be said. It's not toxic masculinity, it's ineptitude. And also, what Anakin does, believe it or not, is out of love, but is also the fear of losing that love.
Yes. Also, to be fair, another one of the big failures of the Jedi here is when Master Yoda was telling Anakin to mourn them not and miss them not, when he was telling Yoda about the loss of Padme. Those two moments right there, the death of Qui-Gon and Yoda for some reason being really, really, really fucked up that one time, are why the Jedi Order was fucked. And I think Yoda eventually grew to realize just how fucked up that was, which is why he was much better in the original trilogy. Because he realized telling young virile men and women not to care about anyone, especially their friends who they've grown up with since childhood, is probably not doing them any favors. That's probably an easy way to break something in their brains.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, Master Yoda discovered this on Dagobah, which itself has a very strong dark side presence.
Anakin was only able to finally defeat the Emperor and the dark side when he broke free from toxic masculinity during the climax of Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi. Before you say something, Don, may I?
Please.
You're an absolute goddamn motherfucking dumbassery fuckwad idiot.
Agreed.
The reason why Anakin defeats the Emperor and broke free, as you say, was not because of toxic masculinity, but because he finally accepted all the loss and grief and finally was able to let go and move on and find some peace and realize that his love and everything, the legacy of himself, Padme, and everything will live on in his children.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
Also, I'd like to point out this because it always bugs me. Anakin never got to meet Leia as himself. He only got to meet her as Vader.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks.
I believe there are some subsequent materials from the extended universe that where the ghost of Anakin meets Leia and they have a reconciliation.
I hope so, because that has always kind of bugged me that Luke gets the touching let me help you get that mask off, father moment, but Leia just
There's
kind of
also
off in the corner going, wait, what?
there's also Star Wars comics Infinities, like What Ifs, where Leia became a Jedi as well. And through her and Luke, they were able to save Anakin.
Yeah, I think another one of the everyone's problems could be solved in 5 seconds. If Yoda and Obi-Wan had trained both of them and they had tag teamed Vader and or Sidious, I think it would have been much better.
Again, I'm just having it up to the Jedi are fully inept.
Well, but by this point in the timeline, they should have gotten better and gotten over themselves, is all I'm saying.
Anyway, instead of pushing down his feelings as the Jedi taught him, he saved Luke based on an attachment grown out of parental instincts and familial love. Okay, and I don't know.
He was also suppressing his loyalty to his master that he had for 19 plus years. And
how old was Anakin by Return of the Jedi?
okay, so he was 12, I believe, either 11 or 12 in Phantom Menace. Then
21.
I believe 18 years go by.
Okay,
between.
so he's like mid-20s.
Yeah. Then another 6 years, I believe, go by in between
Clone Wars, yeah.
Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. So he would have been like late 20s, early 30s.
Okay, and then plus the extra 20 years.
Yeah, 19 for.
Okay, so the dude would have been in his 50s.
Yeah, 19 for New Hope. Then 3 for Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi basically jumps right straight off of Empire. So yeah.
Well, there's also like a time skip in the movie itself from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know how long, but
yeah.
So 50s or so. or about maybe early 60s.
Yeah.
Wow, he's a lot older than I thought he'd be, especially
Yeah.
when he only has like 20-year-old kids, or well, mid 20-year-old kids. Huh.
Yeah, Luke and Leia both would have been like 21, 22 by the end of Return of the Jedi.
Interesting. Anyway, Anakin killed the Emperor and saved Luke's life, giving in to his feelings of love and attachment. When he finally allowed himself to feel, he overcame the toxic masculinity that plagued him all his life. Where the where the fuck is toxic masculinity? I'm just seeing like,
He didn't overcome toxic masculinity. He overcame trauma and emotional overcompensation.
yeah, just I don't I don't get it.
And this entire thing could have been solved by him having a proper surrogate father figure. Because instead of having Qui-Gon to fall back on, or even a more mature Obi-Wan, he grabbed on to the first father figure he could, which was the Chancellor, who just so happened to be a Sith Lord, using this emotional connection to exploit the ever-living fuck out of him.
Mm-hmm. All right. If he had been allowed earlier to feel his emotions and not fear them, Anakin might have never fallen to the dark side. Yeah, I agree, but it has nothing to do with toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it has to do with failure, incompetence, and clever manipulation.
Like
And
say,
also a traumatized 12-year-old boy thrust into the role of a chosen one and then told not to be egotistical about being the chosen one. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Which again, I want to stress this, probably didn't do him any favors. Good news, 12-year-old kid. We're going to put our hopes, dreams, and all our aspirations on your shoulders. But don't you ever feel arrogant or cocky about being able to actually live up to our standards. And if you at any point fail to live up to our standards, we'll shun you and hate you because reasons.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the next thing. Should be quick, honestly. Yeah, you sent this to me, and I kind of figured we wanted to cover this anyway. So
Yeah.
this from Deadline.com. Neil Gaiman's The Sandman cast Tom Sturridge, Gwendolyn Christine, uh, Vivian Ockampong, Boyd Holbrook, Charles Dance, Asim Chaudhry, and Sanjeev Bhaskar. But I say these names wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's written by Dino Ray Ramos, published January 28th, 2021. Okay. Yeah, like I said, Don wanted us to cover this. Kind of figured, no surprise why.
Yep. Mr. Sandman, bring us a dream.
Right. It seems like forever, but the wait is about to an end. The anticipated Netflix adaptation of Neil Gaiman's popular comic book series, The Sandman, is coming together. All the actors have been set. So, all the actors previously mentioned have been set to star in the dark fantasy series based on the DC Comics. The series is described as a rich blend of modern myth and dark fantasy, in which contemporary fiction, historical drama, and legend are seamlessly interwoven.
So, the Sandman. Because
Yeah.
that's kind of what the Sandman always was.
Mm-hmm. The Sandman follows the people and places affected by Morpheus, the Dream King, as he tries to fix all the cosmic and human mistakes he's made during his vast existence.
I'm going to get annoyed if they call him Morpheus more often than they should. Because I really hate calling him Morpheus, because that kind of restricts him to one pantheon, and I hate that. He's Dream,
Mhm.
as in all of them. All of the gods of Dream. Like again,
No,
one of my all-time favorite moments in Sandman is when he shows up at the Watchtower or at the home of John Jones, and John sees him as the Martian god of dreams. And then another great moment where he's talking to Caesar Augustus in ancient Roman times, and Augustus literally just asks him, "What god are you?" And um, Dream literally says, "I am no little dream god." So yeah, I don't like calling him Morpheus.
mhm. Alan Heinberg, Wonder Woman and Grey's Anatomy, will serve as showrunner and executive producer alongside Gaiman and David S. Goyer. Batman Begins, Dark Knight, Terminator, Dark Fate, Foundation. Gaiman, Goyer, and Heinberg are also co-writers on the project.
Yeah, the only bad choice in my opinion is David Goyer, because David Goyer has this passive aggressive hatred for comic book media, and I hate it. That
Yeah,
being said, I used to have no faith whatsoever in Alan Heinberg, but then I saw what Wonder Woman was like without Alan Heinberg, and now I'm grateful that Alan Heinberg gets Sandman.
so I think you have a better appreciation for him now.
Yeah, because a Alan Heinberg less Wonder Woman 2 was comparatively shit, which is good news for the Sandman in this case. So I don't even care. As selfish as that is, I would much rather the sequel to Wonder Woman suck than the adaptation of one of the greatest comics ever written suck.
Mm-hmm. Um, 2020, 2021 Netflix pilots stamp series orders. And for the last 33 years, the Sandman characters have breathed and walked around and talked in my head. I'm unbelievably happy that now, finally, they get to step out of my head and into reality. Gaiman said in a statement. I can't wait until the people out there get to see what we've been seeing as Dream and the rest of them take flesh. And the flesh belongs to some of the finest actors out there. He added this is astonishing and I'm so grateful to the actors and to all of the Sandman collaborators, Netflix, Warner Brothers, DC, to Alan Heinberg and David Goyer, and the legions of crafters and geniuses on the show for making the wildest of all my dreams into reality.
And speaking as a fan of the Sandman for pretty much as long as I've been alive, for the love of every god in every pantheon, do not fuck this up. I beg of you. This is I Neil was not exaggerating when he said that this was his most elaborate dream. So please, God damn you all, do not fuck this up.
Mm-hmm. The Sandman adds to Gaiman's list of fantasy series based on his work, which includes Amazon's Good Omens, stars American Gods, and Lucifer, which now streams on Netflix. Here are the character descriptions. Tom Sturridge is Dream. I'm gonna look him up real quick.
Moment of truth. So much moment of truth. Because this is the one they have to get right. Otherwise, I'm going to have to summon up Dream and like ask him to literally just possess the dude.
I am. Give me a second. I'm looking it up. All right, British actor. Looking at movies. Um, quite a few things.
Okay.
Um, period pieces, and stuff. Um, was in a movie called Velvet Buzzsaw, which is on Netflix. I've heard stuff about it. Uh,
I've heard good things. It struck me as very much in the vein of like pretentious Oscar bait shite, but we all got to start somewhere.
really, it has a really interesting message that I find great, which is doing art simply to do art, to have fun.
Yeah, which people don't do nearly enough anymore. Maybe I should actually bother to give Velvet Buzzsaw a look because it looked very pretentious to me, but maybe my
Well, it
first
is.
impression was wrong.
I mean, it is a horror movie, so.
Hmm.
Yeah, I, I got nothing on this guy. Like, I have no opinion because I've never really seen this guy.
Honestly, I'm sort of glad they went with a mostly unknown actor because the um ones that were being thrown around kind of gave me almost a heart attack. Like the two I heard most often was either Tom Hiddleston or Benedict Cumberbatch. And I'm sorry, but no, neither. It Benedict, if you can't be arsed to get Doctor Strange right, I'm not letting you anywhere in the vicinity of Dream of the Endless. Fuck off. And Tom Hiddleston, I don't see him as appropriate material. Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Tom Hiddleston as the demon Karanzin though. If we wanted to cast him as someone, he would do pretty well, I think, as the demon Karanzin or a Koronzon. I don't know how to quite say it. I just know he was a favorite demon of Aleister Crowley's,
Mhm.
and he was also in the Sandman.
Okay, so yeah, we have Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, the ruler of hell. Miss Gwendolyn has played in roles such as Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones, and also Captain Phasma in the sequel Star Wars trilogy.
I think she definitely has. I mean, even just looking at her picture, she seems to have a lot of regal cachet, and that's the main thing for Lucy. So
Well, to be fair, I believe they based Lucifer of the Dream of Sandman series to
yeah,
look at David Bowie, and if David Bowie was still alive, rest in peace, Miss Man Who Sold the World.
yeah.
They would have casted him, I'm sure.
Although, if you wanted to go a more straight up David Bowie route and still make it a woman, I might have gone with fuck. She played um Scully in X-Files and also was Media in American Gods.
Karen, no, not Karen Daly. I know who you're talking about. Give me a sec.
Gillian Anderson. There we go. I couldn't think of it for a second. But she actually had to do a David Bowie impression in her role as Media in season 1 of American Gods, and she was partly raised in the UK, so she has kind of a natural accent. She, I think, would do a really good job as Lucifer. Not faulting Gwendolyn Christie, and honestly, if you wanted to go with Gwendolyn Christie just for a little bit more prestige and cachet, I don't fault you because
Plus, she's like super tall, so she'll have that kind of imposing figure that
I mean,
that Lucifer
he,
should have.
yeah, he's supposed to be the fairest of all archangels. So yeah,
Yeah. Plus, it's not the first time they've done gender swapped angels before.
no, and they're angels, so they can take whatever form they want.
Yeah. I'm just curious if they're going to give her like any type of prosthetics or something for her.
I think they'll probably end up mixing practical and CGI, if anything, which
Right.
is
You know,
probably the best way to go about it anyway.
I kind of think just honestly colored contacts would be best.
Oh, I was just thinking in terms of the wings,
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
the wings are kind of important because plot point.
Mm.
Although I will give you all of the points, just all of them, if she looks like Gwendolyn Christie while she's ruling over hell, and then when her wings are cut off, she transforms into Tom Ellis. That that would be an ultimate win, and it would fix one of the major problems I had with the Lucifer series. In Lucifer, it's implied that Maze is the one that removes his wings. But in Sandman, of course, he has Dream do it. So yeah.
All right. But this is also a thing that I think that I did bring up earlier when we were talking Cobra Kai. I because there was a bit of a controversy with Gwendolyn Christie being Lucifer.
Yeah.
She's a great actress.
To
Like,
it, yeah, it's a great actress, so shut the fuck up.
and plus,
And also, if anyone is complaining, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was gonna say, like, even in when she was playing Captain Phasma, where she totally got shafted, by the way, she
Yeah.
she was still pretty interesting. She did the best with what she got. So again, like, she's a great actress, and she's got that physicality that I think really is kind of needed for uh, Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Yeah. And to those that are complaining, if you're on the feminist side of the argument, fuck you. The devil has been portrayed as male for thousands of years. Women can be bad too, and moreover, Lucifer and Sandman isn't even particularly evil. They're mostly sympathetic. So shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's on our side of the argument, then fuck you too. If a woman is the best to play the role, I don't care. And also, again, Lucifer is mostly sympathetic in this instance. The only problem I have with this is that she's not Tom Ellis, which is a legit problem because he basically defines Lucifer at this point. In the same way that if they don't cast Matt Ryan as John Constantine, I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah, plus, and I brought this up prior to in stream. They cast Tilda Swinton as Gabriel in the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie.
Yeah, the one that is technically not a Constantine movie, but never mind because Keanu tried.
So,
Yeah, so angels being androgynous sort of makes sense.
yeah.
Plus, why would angels care necessarily about our definitions of male and female anyway?
Yeah. And again, also bring up Supernatural. The angels possess different bodies all the time.
Yeah.
And granted, that's a totally different thing, but
True, but still, and death changed over, and it wasn't a problem. Although I will admit that I wish they had brought back original Death for the finale, just to be the one to reap God, like he said he was going to back in season 5. That would have been nice, but never mind. That's a different rant for a different day.
yeah. All right, so we have Vivian Akamipong as Lucian. I looked her up. She hasn't done much. Apparently, she was in the 2020 Witches movie.
That's not a good sign.
Also,
But
a movie called Death in Paradise.
okay, that's better.
I've never heard of it.
Who did she play in The Witches?
Give me a second.
Okay, just so I have an idea of who we're talking about.
Let me look up IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
I think she could be a relatively new actress as well. So
Yeah, Well, again, if she can do the job, I don't care.
But Lucian, yeah, the chief librarian and trusted guardian of Dreams Realm. It's been a while since I've read the Dream series or the Sandman series. So,
Mhm.
and I know Lucian didn't really pop up as was not like a constant figure.
He was a fairly minor character, but
Yeah.
I mean, I still love him. I find it hard to say I don't love every character in the entire thing, to be honest with you, because my
Um,
favorite comic.
Alice's mum is what it says for the witches.
Ah, okay. I'm guessing this is a fairly unknown actor as well, which again, if she can do the job, I don't care.
Yeah.
And Lucian is literally a dream, so they manifest differently to different people. Um, I might have suggested changing the name though, if you were going to go with a female actor.
Uh,
Because Lucian is a very male name, and I might have gone with like
I think it's spelled.
Lucinda or something.
I think it's spelled differently to be female. Maybe.
So like Lucy Ann, maybe something like that. But I don't know. But again, if you were going to go with in this case, because the name Lucian is very male, and there's less wiggle room than there's with Lucifer. I might have changed the name circumstantially, but again, Lucian is not that major of a character. Um, I'm just mostly just hoping that the person in question can do the job.
Yeah. I'm just curious who they're going to cast for each of the
The
endless.
endless siblings, yeah.
Yeah.
Please,
I
for the
remember.
love of God, don't make me set through Kat Dennings again, ever,
Okay.
as death.
Okay. This is
Oh
kind
God.
of so, this is always my go-to for a fan casting actress.
Hmm.
But hear me out. Karen Gillian as Death.
I'd rather her be Delirium.
Okay, fair. She's just a good
Um,
actress, and I think she'll honestly, whatever role you put her in, she's going to do awesome.
yeah, this is true. I absolutely adore Karen Gillan and everything. I just think, given the fact that Delirium already has some streaks of red in her hair, and given um the sort of wacky persona that Karen Gillan has, I think she might do better with Delirium.
Fair enough.
Um,
Fair enough. Yeah. All right.
I honestly don't know who I would cast as Death. Maybe Helena Bonham Carter. Maybe.
Oh, dude, she's awesome. She was actually my yeah, Helena Bonham Carter. She was my fan cast for Mad Harriet for the female Furies.
Ah.
We really like someone needs to put that group in a movie.
Well, I mean, DC is making a New Gods movie, so the female
No, no,
Furies can't be far
no,
behind.
I honestly wanted them in a Justice League movie and like them go up against the Justice League.
Well, they probably will, but it makes more sense to establish them in a New Gods movie anyway, because
What
that's
about,
all Apocalypse and
well, imagine this: like Steppenwolf and the female Furies going up against
yeah,
the Justice League. That would have been cool.
yeah. Although Steppenwolf would have had to have been cool before. I would trust his ability to exist alongside the female Furies anyway, because
Yes.
Steppenwolf cinematically is so far not cool.
Honestly, they really should have done the Earth 2 version, like adapted that version.
Mm.
Where he looks
Yeah,
human but he wears the kind of armor.
yeah,
And he's like a master tactician.
yeah. That would have been nice too.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving right along here.
So we have Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian, an escaped nightmare who wishes to taste all that the world has in store. I will say he looks like the Corinthian, actually.
I'm The Corinthian is one of those roles that, again, knocking on wood here a little bit, I think would be relatively hard to fuck up. I think.
Right.
But
The Yeah, he looks like the Corinthian, and he's played bad guys in the past. Like he played the kind of the villain in Logan.
right,
Yeah, so he can do that kind of what's the word?
imposing.
Yeah, imposing, and it's kind of Jokerish. I'd say with the Corinthian. I mean, like to a lesser extent. Like
Yeah, but he's supposed to be everything dark that exists in humanity, and he's supposed to enjoy it. So
yeah, like he's a more self-aware Joker than anything. I'd say.
although if he were a more self-aware version of the Joker, his eye teeth would be in the form of smiles, which honestly would make the Corinthian even creepier.
Right. But my point being is Boyd Holbrook is another good casting.
Yeah, I don't see any castings that get my ire up here really, just with the minor asterisk of I wish they had gotten Tom Ellis to be Lucifer again.
Uh,
But
um,
if you bring back Matt Ryan and have him be Constantine alongside any version of Dream, I'll be happy.
yeah. Charles Dance is Roderick Burgess. Charlatan, blackmailer, and magician. Charles Dance, always a win. You can't go wrong with Charles Dance.
I agree.
Like,
I hope they take some inspiration from Aleister Crowley because Roderick Burgess was very much based on Aleister Crowley to a large extent, and also apparently in the DC universe he's a rival of Aleister Crowley, which I enjoyed.
mhm.
That whole exchange of like this'll show Aleister when I come in binding death. They'll never make fun of me again, which, fair.
Yeah. Um,
Aleister Crowley was an asshole, so your ambition makes sense to me. But still, this could have gone very, very wrong for you, even more wrong than it already went.
right. So Asim Chaudhry is Abel. Looking him up. He's a comedian.
I I wouldn't have gone that route, but that's not necessarily a bad sign. Sometimes comedians can be very good at as dramatic actors, so maybe.
Well, no, it's Abel, Cain and Abel, and I'll be honest. I think they were kind of very much in terms of the Sandman series, they were very much a
Comic relief, kind of, yeah.
yeah. I'm just curious who's playing Cain, and like he looks a lot like the act like Asim. If I'm saying the same again, I'm sorry. Like I don't. It's hard to
Yeah.
read.
And it does also make sense for them to be Middle Eastern because I mean that's where most of the Bible is set, and they are supposed to be Cain and Abel. So yeah,
Yeah, I do find it weird that Abel was named first. But, whatever.
yeah. I think people tend to have a stronger liking towards Cain because he's the kind of fun bastard that you enjoy, um, kind of rooting for, even though he's a bastard.
Okay, so yeah, we have another English comedian actor. Yeah. Oh, he's 57. The guy playing Abel is only 34. Well, okay, that makes sense because Cain was the firstborn. So,
Yeah. So yeah, that sort of makes sense.
although he doesn't look.
And until they got booted out of the garden, Adam and Eve were immortal, so they could have had Abel 1,000 years after Cain if they wanted to, I guess. As long as it was before they got all busy with the fruit of the tree of knowledge.
Right. Um. I mean, he doesn't look that old, but yeah. So they, yeah, again, like a really good casting so far.
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, some here at the end. An adaptation of The Sandman has been gestating for some time. Initially, it was set to be a feature film directed by and starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I am so glad that version does not exist.
I'll be honest. I'm curious. I'm curious to see what would have been. Um, he ended up stepping down after creative differences. Gaiman and Goyer were also involved in the film adaptation, and that's it.
Hmm. It seems like the casting that's been announced so far is mostly going to be in Volume 1, so I'm going to assume that we'll get more casting announcements as we progress through the volumes, probably. I mean, I'd imagine that's how that'll work.
I mean, probably.
Yeah,
I sure myself.
because I mean, they haven't cast any of the other analysts to our knowledge yet. They haven't cast Constantine yet. They haven't cast, um, although they should get on that, but quickly, especially because it should be as easy as giving Matt Ryan a call. Ideally.
All right. So the last thing on the agenda tonight is again something Dalton sent me. This is Godzilla versus Kong official trailer.
Let them fight.
Yes. I got nothing to say. So, shall we banana?
We shall banana.
Banana.
Giant ape banana, apparently.
This is our only chance. We have to take it.
Okay. I have a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
In King of the Monsters, isn't Godzilla technically the hero?
Yes. And exactly here is where I start to come off as well. Because number one, it seems like they're making Kong the ambiguous good guy and Godzilla the or the unambiguous bad guy, which
Uh,
I don't like because
okay. The thing I would have it would have made more sense if Kong it's a similar thing with Ghidorah and um, Godzilla in King of Monsters. Is there two alphas? They're two kings.
yeah,
So,
they're trying to essentially vie for dominance would be my guess,
yeah.
or would be the route I would have gone with it, or failing that, make it as ambiguous as possible so that the people who came just for Godzilla can come just for Godzilla and root for their guy, and the people who came just for Kong can come just for Kong and root for their guy. You don't want a binary good versus evil story here any more than you would in like um Batman versus Superman or something. Well, assuming that movie was done well, which it wasn't, but you know what I mean. In an actual Batman versus Superman story.
I'm having Vietnam flashbacks with that movie.
I, how did they fuck that up, by the way?
It's not that fucking hard. Damn, what the fuck you, Zack Snyder, you pretentious dickwad.
Like I'm just think it's like the history of violence clip with the "How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up? How in God's name do you fuck that up?" kind of thing.
Like off the top of my head, I came up with a better story just like a few years ago, right?
Mhm.
Like the whole idea revolves around the destruction of Metropolis from Man of Steel.
Mhm.
Bruce loses Alfred in the attack instead of some random dude.
Yeah.
And it's more about revenge than an actual logical threat.
Yeah,
It's
because you stole my father figure, you son of a bitch.
it's Batman at his most emotional, and he's the one being manipulated by
Luthor.
yeah. And Clark, and I honestly would do some major fucking retconning with Clark.
Yeah, it's just so much of the retconning.
And you know what? I'd also give him a fucking character in that movie.
Yeah, make him an entity unto himself instead of blank,
It's
nondescript.
a reactionary piece of bland cardboard.
Yeah.
Like,
but back on point though. In cases of Kong versus Godzilla, because both characters are likable to their various fan bases, number one, from a storytelling perspective, it doesn't make sense for there to be binary good versus evil, because these are supposed to be like titans. They're supposed to be like god tier forces of nature entities. Like they're supposed to be forces of nature unto themselves. They don't need to. Not only don't they need to conform to human standards of morality, but they shouldn't. And what's more, like Brainstormer was saying, Godzilla was ostensibly the good guy in his movie. So making him just all of a sudden act weird because stupid is itself stupid. And also, Kong was kind of inadvertently the bad guy of his movie. So how the fuck are you gonna weasel out of that one? Like he accidentally crushed like a whole bunch of people. Now granted he was a baby and it was an accident at the time, but still you appear to either A, be enforcing some kind of morality where there doesn't need to be one, or B, inverting what little fragments of morality there could be said to have been to begin with.
yeah. All right. Shall we?
Giant monkey banana.
Ape.
Yeah. Which of course makes me think of the Fairly Odd Parents clip where Cosmo conjures up a bunch of bananas because he needs thinking food, and then the monkey takes it, which successfully accomplishes the task at hand, but makes Cosmo angry. Oh, lol.
Huh?
Yeah, giant ape banana.
Yep.
We need Kong. The world needs him. To stop what's coming. And this child. She's the only one who'll communicate with.
I knew the day out of bond, she had nowhere to go, so I made a promise to protect her.
I mean, I get it. There's supposed to be a good story.
Why
Fine.
are you restricting this to the level of the human characters again? God damn it!
Like I get it, but there is a point where you can not do that.
Yeah.
Like,
And we just spent the last two movies setting up the human characters, so we didn't have to in this one. I.e., this movie can just be the blowout extravaganza of a giant monster duking it out fight
yeah,
that we came for.
the weird thing is, it's another set of characters. Like brand new
Yeah,
characters.
it's not even characters who were previously established. They just exist because reasons.
I mean, I think there are some that'll come in, but they're not
Obviously,
the focal point.
Apparently there's a new character who's a little girl who's I guess the monster communication chosen one. She's Eliza fucking Thornberry for Kaiju now, I guess.
It's just I don't.
number one, why you didn't need to have human stakes in this at all. The human stakes is there are two forces of goddamn nature duking it out over top of a city. Hopefully, we'll all survive. That's the only real like human connection that was needed to be there. And why are you reducing again the emotional repertoire of what ostensibly are forces of goddamn nature, neutral and indifferent forces of goddamn nature, to it's a cute little girl, I want to protect it. That's so mind-numbingly stupid. I could cry, but I'm not going to.
Ed Brewer is here.
The tears will be wasted on you.
Ed Brewer is here. He says, "What's up, guys? Not much. Just watching Godzilla vs. Kong. Would you settle it for a model city with two dudes in rubber suits duking it out? Depends on how good the suits are, and depend on how cinematic it looked.
Yeah, the writing is like you could actually do a Godzilla vs. Kong practically with something similar to like Pacific Rim. Which, side note, why was Guillermo del Toro not asked to do this? I want to see that universe where Guillermo del Toro did Godzilla vs. Kong, because that is probably the best movie ever made for geek stuff.
God damn it. Anyway.
Because he basically already did this once with Pacific Rim. And we know he can do monsters, so Guillermo del Toro's version of this would be amazing.
Yep. I feel like if this movie bombs, which it might, I might do a rewrite of it.
I don't want it to bomb, as annoying as the arbitrary moral standards are and the little girl who's the chosen one is. It still looks good enough that I think once we get all the throat clearing and the pseudo philosophizing out of the way, we'll be able to see some genuine badassery. And I'm hoping what they'll say at the end with regards to Godzilla is like he had some sort of kaiju illness or something. And then we can see like Godzilla and Kong team up against like Ghidorah or something in the next one.
Well, Ghidorah's dead though.
Well, or another big, or hell, have some villainous group of terrorists make Mechagodzilla and Mechanicong, and then have them team up against their mechanical robot selves. Because the only thing more awesome than Godzilla versus Kong is Godzilla and Kong versus something else.
Yeah, Ed agrees. Del Toro would be a great pick. He says it will bomb and only that it costs more than it will make back.
Well, probably in the sense of COVID restrictions nerf all box office, but still,
Anyway.
maybe this will make HBO Max the next Netflix, and that'll justify the cost they put into it for the win. Because I want more giant monsters versus giant monsters movies. They just need to get over themselves and not feel the need to stick human emotional connections where they don't belong. Please. I came for the giant monster fight. I want my goddamn giant monster fight. Please.
Banana?
Giant ape banana.
And I think that in some way, Kong did the same.
I feel nothing. I legitimately don't.
Which again leads us back to how in all creation do you fuck this up? It's really, really not that hard.
Yep.
It's Godzilla versus Kong. This literally should sell itself. Just why? Why? I feel like Squidward in that one episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob gets an ego because he was on the TV commercial. And forgets that he was a fry cook, and Squidward is just like, why don't you get in the kitchen and grab some patties and give people what they came here for? Well, studios, why don't you go back to the cutting room, grab some kaiju, and give people what they came here for? I want my goddamn giant monster chicken fight. Which is basically what this should be. It should be like Peter versus the giant chicken on Family Guy, but 1,000 times more. 100,000 times more, even.
Right. Banana?
Yep. Banana.
It's Godzilla.
Oh. Sorry. Again, I don't feel anything.
The shot of Kong bouncing up into Godzilla's atomic breath is cool and all, but
I have okay, this is a little director thing, so get ready to take the swigs, boys.
Yep.
Oh, boys and girls. The color feels very flat when compared to King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
Like it seems like it's going backwards to like the original Godzilla.
it's not that bad. The 2015 Godzilla was really, really gray and dingy. I think it was 2015.
These colors feel very desaturated, is what I'm saying.
Compared to the stylized awesomeness that was, the Michael Dougherty directed King of Monsters, which is why you should have kept Michael Dougherty around, you sons of bitches. But I digress. Yeah. Again, this is one of the situations of like you took a concept that is nigh impossible to fuck up, and you appear to be on the road to fucking it up. I'm still gonna see it because I can't not see it, but at the same time, I feel like I'm gonna be saying, "How did you fuck that up?" when all is said and done, and I'm gonna be really, really motherfucking sad when I have to.
Yeah. All right, banana.
Banana.
What the fuck is with that music?
I think it's supposed to be like ironic and epic, maybe.
I mean, I'm not. It's the kind of rap music I listen to sometimes when.
I think they're trying to play into the like idea of a giant monster like heavyweight wrestling fight or some shit. Like this is supposed to be the fighter's bravado kind of coming through, maybe. But still,
it's just very jarring to the first half of the trailer, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is their attempt to show that they're gonna embrace the fun of it all, which good for you. Although in all fairness, that should be like level 1 of how to do this, because this is the easiest thing to get right in the universe if you actually care about either of these franchises.
Edbro says they can do so much with animation. I haven't seen any epic Godzilla animation. Is there any? The trailer looks pretty decent so far. It's okay. Like, I don't know.
I'm hoping it's just a pretty bad trailer for a much better movie. I'm hoping. But if not, I reserve the right to ask repeatedly and in all exasperation, How in Godzilla's name did you fuck that up?
All right. Banana.
Banana.
These are dangerous times. Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why.
There's something provoking him that we're not seeing here.
I'm of the same opinion.
The myths are real. There was a war.
Okay, well now the color's coming through now. It's just like with the stuff at sea, it looked pretty grayish or like desaturated.
Yeah. Just again, like this is why you should have kept Michael Dougherty, because if it had been Michael Dougherty, you know he would have played into every like pulpy epic aspect of this.
I do. It's doing that thing I hate with a lot of trailers, especially like blockbuster trailers, is that it's pretty much telling you everything about the movie.
Which, granted, in this case I don't mind, because we're here for the payoff, not necessarily the setup. Like the contrivance that lets us see Godzilla versus King Kong is not nearly as important as the actual verses of it. So, like, this was the number one fucked up wrong thing that BVS did, was it promised us Batman versus Superman, and then the actual versing was 10 very anticlimactic minutes, maybe even if that. When it should have been, honestly, probably an entire half an hour sequence long. And I feel sort of the same way with this, in that, like, okay, good, you've got your human stakes. I don't really care about them, but they're there. You've got some kind of reason why they should fight each other. So good. Let's, it's like, let's stop clearing our throats and stop with the hand wringing and actually get to what people paid for. And in this case, what people want is giant motherfucking ape, giant motherfucking atomic lizard creature thing, Titan, and the versing. Make with the versing already, goddamn you.
What's weird is that in King of the Monsters, in like the ending, they showed that there were various different Titans that bowed to Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like even original creations too.
Yeah.
For the kaiju verse.
Yeah. I do like the idea that the kaiju are basically the ancient equivalent of Titans. And I do like that they actually do, by all appearances, have actual like magical qualities to them, because that sort of brings in a supernatural element that doesn't often get referenced in kaiju movies, and I kind of like it. Like the fact that Godzilla's atomic breath actually creates more life. That's kind of nice.
All right, Banana.
Banana.
And they're the last ones standing.
I keep reaching for greatness because I'm built from it. Who bows to who? Nobody gonna stop the main. Here we go.
Kong bows to no one.
Again, like it's fine. I'm not completely invested simply on the fact that I haven't seen the other films.
Yeah, I would say skip the 2014 Godzilla and just go ahead and watch King of the Monsters, and you'll be all caught up, because they basically ignore everything that happened in the first one anyway.
What
as they
about
should, because it was boring.
what about Kong Skull Island?
Oh yeah, you should probably watch that too. Watch Skull Island before you watch King of the Monsters, though.
I kind of figured because it takes place in like the 70s.
Yeah, and it was Baby Kong, which in retrospect is cute, even though he destroyed an entire like military base worth of people because giant ape temper tantrums. I guess.
Okay, So yeah, my thoughts in is okay, and yeah. Other than that, folks, I got nothing list on yet. Final thoughts.
We just want our giant epic monster smackdown with each other. This is not that hard. Please do not fuck it up.
So yeah, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avidase, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Pleasant dreams.